All right. What's good, people? Welcome back to the Onyx Report. Black Masculinist news for the day. Hope y'all are well. Appreciate y'all joining me on this Friday evening before y'all get into whatever y'all choose to get into. But you know what it is. Like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. Support the show. You can do that in a variety of ways. You can become a member of the channel right here on YouTube. Just click the join button right next to the subscribe button. And I hope you've subscribed already. You can also go to Patreon, become a patron of the show right here on YouTube, as well as the Institute for Black Male Studies and the Onyx Network, the Onyx TV network, which you can find on, well, let me just go ahead and pull it up for you. All right. So you can go ahead and support the show on the Cash App. And I should say, for those of you that, because I found this whole new demographic, right, that I hadn't really formally thought about, those who want to support but don't want their names to be publicly associated. And I get why brothers got jobs. I get what it is. I will shout you out either by first name, or you can let me know in the Cash App notification you don't want to be shouted out, but support the show. Go ahead and do the Cash App and do so right there. But I was going to say, you can also check out the Onyx TV network on iPhone, Android, Amazon Fire TV, and Roku. Shout out to Urban Naturalist Apothecary. I appreciate that support. All right. Growth Talk with Kofa in the house. Y'all support Growth Talk with Kofa. Support his show. Support his channel. Subscribe over there. A lot of brothers in the house. Harvest, Wannabe Mystic, Lithium. What's up? Eric. Shout out to Green Gorilla. If y'all have been missing Green Gorilla, you late. You need to get over there and get back in school. Brother just got off a fire stream dealing with affirmative action. So if you missed it, make sure you go back and check it out and subscribe to the Green Gorilla channel. You know what it is. What's up, Tony? Chef Mike. Always good to see you, good brother. AKs and Curtains, you as well. What's up? Pi May in here. Eric. Black men being true, brutally honest. Appreciate that. What's up, Mr. Betts? No one was good. Inspired one, Brother Truth Be Told, Blood Crow, Drewski, Jones, Dr. Dunbar in the house. What's good? What's good with you, Dr. Dunbar? Hope you're well. And last night I forgot to shout out Keep It 100. I saw him in the chat and I was in my stream of thought, but shout out to Keep It 100. I'll support his channel as well. Got Barry in here. Always props to Salty Balls. You be killing me with that every time I see it. What's good with you, man? Spain Man, Cynical Optimist, Inye Wakoma, Promel. Hope everybody's good. Shout out to BGS Ibmore as usual. If you missed that, he had a fire show earlier. Make sure you subscribe to BGS Ibmore. Jamaica, Orange Pill. Hope y'all are well. So yeah, man. The other thing I needed to do, because there was a few Cash Apps I didn't read from last night, and I apologize. I was in it. So I wanted to at least shout those brothers out, not including those who asked not to be publicly, but I appreciate their support as well. But a shout out to MLR, shout out to Dark Power, shout out to Brian, shout out to Eric, Expansion Wiring, shout out to Lebert, Stacker Starve, Terrell, Levi, Raymond, Kemet, Greg, Trauma, Christopher, Armand, Sean, Green Company, G. Shout out to Salchi, who I just heard on Green Gorilla's channel, dropping it as usual. So shout out to those brothers. Appreciate the support. And of course, another drop from Greg today. So shout out to all of those who are supporting the show. So I thought we'd get one in before we kick off your weekend. So hopefully we can kind of get on the same page in regard to some of these attacks that are coming at Black men from different vantage points. Some of them are soft attacks. Some of them are hard, direct attacks. Either way, I think they need to be addressed, called out, identified for what they are, and challenged. And the thing about it is I'm seeing more brothers do that than I ever have. So y'all inspire me. You motivate me. I love seeing brothers bringing facts, bringing data, bringing statistics, bringing analysis and lived experience alongside history to make their arguments about where Black men are, where we're going, what's going on with us. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. And I'm here for more of it. So I hope we'll continue to synergistically build off each other and advance this. So, you know, many of us are familiar with one Rebecca Lynn Pope. She's been been around for a while. Her ministry, as it were, is kind of coaching ministry, which is primarily directed at Black women, help them navigate this kind of, situation as far as dating, marriage, the whole deal. She's been around for a couple years, and she really caught most of our attention when she decided to stop matchmaking, stop coaching, right? And so that was something that I think surprised a lot of us, because we hadn't heard Black women publicly actually come out and say the same things that we've been saying. As a matter of fact, most of the time when we said things, they would be, dismissed. Oh, you just hate women, this and that. But no, actually, we started to hear it. And so the first time we heard from her, this is what we got. Now, obviously, for all the stuff I'm going to play from her, I'm only playing the audio for a reason. I don't want to get hit up with any copyright issues. And I'm probably not going to play the whole thing of this, but, I did want to kind of start out with us being reminded of how we were first introduced to Rebecca Lynn Pope. So let me just kind of cue this up, fair use. And let's be reminded where we heard her for the first time.
Hello, this is Rebecca Lynn Pope coming on real quick. You guys raw. I'm about to be very real. I'm about to just shoot it to you as just straight as I can, because I'm hoping that this helps somebody. Because as you girls know, I'm a matchmaker. And for a large part of the end of last year and the beginning of this year, I stopped matchmaking. And the reason I stopped matchmaking is because I literally was I can't handle female clients. I was a matchmaker that matched females, and I had a few male clients, but predominantly I was matching women. And listen, it was such a valuable lesson for me, because what I learned is that the average woman doesn't really want just a good man. She doesn't want a husband. What she's really wanting are these standards or ideas that she has of what a man is supposed to be. But this is nothing what men are. This is not realistic.
Now, she still sings the same tune, but she's added a few things to it, although not as much as we might think. But let's see. Let me let her continue.
For who men are, how they think, what they value, it's just this preconceived, idea that women have of who men should be. But this is not reality. Okay, so literally the standards here that I see consistently in women that stay single, do not get married, and the difference between women and wives is understanding, one, that men are not women. He's not going to be your best friend like your best girlfriend. You can't talk to him like that. They don't talk like that. They don't talk that much. They're not so sensitive and girly the way we are as women. So if you're expecting a man to be all super sensitive and so considerate and just so everything like your girlfriends, you're barking up the wrong tree. He's going to hurt your feelings all the time, or else you're going to feel like he doesn't communicate because you're holding these standards like he's a girl. I'm sorry. Leave that to your gay guy friends, or leave that to your bestie guys that talk kind of like girls. Your man that you're going to marry is not going to be like that, right? The second standard is this. You're comparing good men to, I can't say this, F-boys. I'm just going to say it. You're comparing good men to the men that you've experienced previously who were not ready to be husbands, that you were just dating, messing around with. I mean, literally, there's a distinct difference between marriage material, men who are ready to be husbands, and these F-boys that you've been messing around with in out of these situationships with for years. And so now you have this standard for a man and a husband based on these dudes that have just been play, Playboys, fun, boy toys, whatever you want to call it, girls, okay? You can call it whatever you want. But now you set this standard to say he's supposed to look like this, he's supposed to act like that. Oh, you know what? He's too corny. He likes me too much. He texts me too much. Yeah, because the men that you were messing with, you weren't even the only one. They don't text you right back. They don't call you right back because they have 8 more just like you. So a man comes along that is crazy about you. And
sorry about all the clipping. I'm not sure where it's coming from. Wasn't doing that earlier, but this is a couple years old. So again, by today's standards, it's already kind of blah. But at the time, it was mind blowing, and she still hasn't gotten to the meat of it. But just kind of want to put a qualifier out there. She's correcting women about the issues she sees with them, and she's about to get into it in a minute.
Is interested in you, and I'm sorry to say, you have friend zoned the men that really you're compatible with, the men that would make a wonderful husband. A lot of you have friend zoned the good dude who's ready to be a husband and a father and give you some pretty babies. Because the other thing is men do not look like us. Let me be clear about this. We are the fairer sex. God created us to be beautiful, not men. If you get a pretty boy and they super fine and they in the mirror more than you, honey, rest assured, he probably got some habits that go along with that. He needs all the attention from all the women because he likes to feel like he's it. And if he's actually bigger than you, you got a problem. But the problem is you looking at visuals and thinking that men are supposed to look like us or be just as gorgeous as us. No, that's not how God created this whole scenario. You are the fairer sex. You're the beautiful one. You're the gorgeous one. You're the one that men go to war over. You're the one that men literally will kill for. You're the one that they're out here trying to make all this money to impress you, to get you. Quit looking at men. Is he 6'2"? Is he look like Boris Kodjoe or Idris Elba or Michael Ealy? Do you know the percentages of men? This is what I just would die to say to my matchmaking clients and the people that would come in for consultations because they want to be matched. And they're coming to me. I'm sitting here just being a good woman. So I'm thinking these women just want married. These women just want a good man. Nah, boo, that's not what they wanted. What they want is if I'm going to pay this money, I want me a Michael Ealy. I want me a Boris Kodjoe. Well, look, boo, Boris Kodjoe's married. Last time I checked, Idris Elba's taken. These men are such a small percentage of the population. Do you guys understand that for a man to be over 6'2" is less than 3% of the population? And we're talking all men around the world, less than 3% of the population. Now you take out the gay guys and you take out the guys that are not black or whatever race specific that you prefer your husband to be. And you take out the men that are broke and you take out the players, the men who are just not ready and who are not ready to get married, aren't even looking for a wife, don't want that responsibility yet. Think about these numbers. Less than 3%. Less than 14% of the entire American male population is over 6 foot. Less than 14%. And that's all the married men and the men in prison, all of them girls. So you're sitting around here like, oh, he's got to be 6 foot and he's got to look like this and he's got to make 6 figures or 7 figures. When you start at just height alone, do you hear the percentage that I just gave you on just height? Just height. And if you add in what he looks like looking like Idris and making money like this and that, honey, look, you looking for the come up for real because I don't know where he's at. I was matchmaking. I would be like, man, I would go find these incredible men. And they would be like, oh, I would never date him. I'm like, I just went and found a freaking pilot of that ex-Falcons player. Are you serious? But he don't look, it's like he's got to be perfect. But you're not perfect. You got issues and unresolved issues, and you got a temper, and you're bossy and you're controlling, and men don't even like to be around you long term. You run everybody away. You think you're so much the ish that you're bougie and vain and stuck up. And men don't like it. And you wonder why you can't keep a man. You wonder why nobody wants to be around you. Sweetheart, listen, get nice, be sweet. Men are simple creatures. They're simple, but your standards are standardizing you right out of the game. Everybody else is getting married. Everybody else is having babies. But you steady like, oh, I'm not settling. I'm not going to settle. I know what I deserve. And you know, even when I post those type of memes, I'm like, you know what? There's some real stuck up women right now that are about to read this, and it's going to reinforce literally their false standards, their ridiculous standards. You know what? I'm not gonna settle. But in the meantime, boo, you're not even half the things that you have on your list as requirements for a man. You're not even half those things, but you want that in a man.
I gotta say, wait, real quick though. This is what I was saying last night. It's never been an issue, and I'm gonna repeat it tonight. It's never been an issue of there not being really enough black men. Obviously, there's more women than men in the black community. There's no question about that. But in terms of the majority of black men, it's not so much an issue that there are not enough people to date or marry. It's an issue of standards. It's an issue of standards that have been constructed that are unrealistic. And brothers have been saying this for years. Now, remember when this came out, I don't really think she knew a lot about the manosphere, but you know, brothers picked it up and ran with it because this was exactly what we were saying. And it's coming from a prominent black female dating coach, right? So, you know, for her to validate that was huge. I don't think she saw it. She didn't really get it. And by the time her constituents kind of let her know how her statements were being used, she really pulled back, especially when Kevin began to ascend, right? When Kevin was using very similar talking points, she took a huge step back and kind of reevaluated her approach. But nevertheless, it's on the record. It can't be denied. You know, she made these statements because they came from a real place. And they came from real experiences she was having with the black women she was coaching and matchmaking for. So as much as she may want to downplay this time period, as much as her followers were upset about it, it's on the record.
And you don't want to build with anybody. You don't want to build a life together. Listen, honey, you better find yourself a Build-A-Bear. You need to find yourself a Build-A-Boo. Okay, somebody that meets some requirements of who you want in character, your values, integrity, right? Lifestyle, goals, vision. Where are you two going together? Purpose, passion. Somebody when I made this post, there everybody went off on it, said, what did you compromise on when it came to Mr. Pope? What did you compromise on? Listen, girls, I'm writing it in my book right now. I came from dating Mr. Gorgeous. I came from dating Mr. Trainer. I came from dating Mr. Baller. I was flying here and doing this and that. And at the end of the day, all of them were players. They were F-boys. No, I'm not supposed to say that word, but I don't have another word for it. Y'all want to turn hoes into husbands the same way men want to turn hoes into housewives. And that's just not how it works. Because until a man is ready, he is not going to choose you. It doesn't matter how you put it down in the bedroom. It doesn't matter what kind of values. It doesn't matter how big your butt is and what you look like. Until a man is ready, he is not settling down. And literally, I'm literally writing this. So my compromises came because I had these standards, just like most of you, that were way up here because I had all these experiences that created an appetite. It created a false standard in my life of what I thought I deserved or what I thought I needed. But yet it was a false standard because none of them were men of God. None of them were Carrie Pope. None of them literally had their values. They weren't good husbands and fathers and brothers. They don't take care of their mama. Literally, these men lacked all the values that really matter in a marriage. A husband is totally different than dudes you date out here, these dudes that are just playing around. A husband is a totally different animal. And so, like many of you, I had these standards. I had a type. Let's be real, girl. I had a type. My type was businessman. My type was CEO. My type was getting it done. My type was literally go-getter. 6 and 7 figure men running companies. Those are the only kind of men I was in relationships with. Okay, that's what I was committing to.
Mm-hmm.
I played with some boy toys from that instead of F boys, okay, girls? Boy toys. I played around thinking I was trying to be serious because of lust. So many of you have fallen in lust. And then you think, and now you want love and you're trying to compare it to lust. And that's not how love works. So you date Mr. Gorgeous and he's got the 6-pack and he's 6'4" and he's chocolate. And then you date the Mr. Baller and he got money and you in the Benz and you whipping and you flying and you drinking and dinner, whining and dining. And at the end of the day now, you created an appetite for yourself, or you, better yet, maybe you haven't even experienced it for yourself like me, but you want it. So you're on Instagram and you're looking at people's lifestyles and you're looking at people on the scene, traveling and doing all this and comparing yourself and saying, why can't I have that? I want that life too. And then when a good man comes along, you're comparing him saying, no, he's not giving me that lifestyle. I want that I see other people having. I deserve that. I'm just as pretty as that. I need to get me a man that's a baller too. And so now you have these false standards, whether you've experienced it or whether you just want it. That lust of the eye, whether you're just you might not have ever experienced it, but you're saying, well, that's what I want. But either way, you're messed up, boo. Either way, you're not getting married. And if you do mess up, and get one of these dudes on a string and get him to marry you. You notice I said, get him to marry you. You're going to be in so much trouble because he ain't going to change. We have clients right now, married clients, try to turn a hoe into a husband and he's still hoeing around even though they're married. He's still got women on the side. And he doesn't want to let his wife and kids go, but yet he's still got this thing for having it on the side because he has an appetite for it. And it's very hard to change unless someone's changed before you marry them.
Now, she doesn't want to admit how comfortable some women are with being a side piece. Now, I don't know much about her. I can tell you she reminds me, because she's Gen X, so this is my generation. These are the chicks I remember in high school that were dating drug dealers. These are the chicks that I remember who knew they were side pieces in their 30s and 40s with kids and damn near, in some instances, grandkids, with dudes who had whole wives at home and they knew it. And in many instances, so did the wives. So let's stop playing. But, she's innocent. Right.
So you understand what I'm saying about standards. Your standards for a husband have to change right now. You've got to make up your mind about some values and some character. Who is this man? What does his life look like? Who is he? Because it's going to be way different than your boy toys. It's going to be way different than what you've done. So my compromises for me, I'm going to answer that specific question. I'm going to get off here because I'm rushing to come on and do this. My specific compromises were that Mr. Pope, when I met him, was not rolling in money. I said I would never date a pastor, and he's a pastor, right? I was running from that calling on my life. Didn't want nothing to do with that, okay? Until I accepted that calling on my own life, that's when I was prepared for my husband to come. So financially, he wasn't what I was used to. He's not the CEO-driven businessman. He's more artistic in nature. He's creative in nature. He's a musician. Totally different than everything I had experienced previous. I know, right, Alicia? Look, I got this build up, girls, because I don't match y'all for matchmaking no more. So I can tell y'all the truth. I can be real and raw with it because I don't need your money, right? I only match men. Now you have some.
Yeah, this is what I was saying last night with Umar. Notice when money no longer becomes an issue, how quickly the narrative changes, the language changes, right? But when you need that cash, all of a sudden people got a different set of values. She said, so now that I don't need the money anymore, I can tell you the truth. What was you doing before?
Dating coaching, and you want it raw and real so you can make some changes so you can get married, hit me up. lifewiththepopes.com, dating coaching. I do it with women all over the country to help them get their standards and principles right. Okay, Mr. Pope, country boy. All I dated was city men. All I dated was ballers and shot callers and men on the scene. And that man, everybody, he's the, oh yeah.
It sounded like she was having a flashback for a moment. I mean, all this really hits me with it smacks of beta bucks, but anyway, here we go. See if she finished this up.
He owns that, and he's this, and he's that. Mr. Pope is a simple man. He's a simple man. He's a down-to-earth man. He's a hard-working man. He loves God and family. That's his values. He loves God and family. He just want to work and take care of his family. He ain't worried about all this that's going on out here with everybody else. He ain't a gossiper. He's not looking for attention from every other woman out here in the world. He's a down-to-earth, good man. And the reason I stopped matching women, hear me on this. These lights are killing me. The reason I stopped matching women is I realized I had been courting, Mr. Pope had been courting me, and I was having new female clients, and as they're running down their standards and what they're really wanting in a match and in a husband, I realized you wouldn't even date Mr. Pope. Like, he's not even good enough for you. That literally what you're wanting is so extra. It's even beyond what I have for myself, literally. And I'm like, boo, wait, I know I make more money than you. I know I'm pretty good looking. And you sitting here with standards that are higher than my own.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Hold on, wait. Where's Red Sigma? See the chick in the 90s with the D-boy and the Acura Legend? Oh my God. Oh man. Shout out to Dub Will. Shout out to Orange Pill Nurse. I'm sorry, I haven't listened to this in a minute. It's funny to me now, but in the past, I was all kinds of excited. Shout out to Mississippi Delta guy. Appreciate that generous support, good brother, as usual. Good looking out. While I'm at it, let me get to some of these super chats real quick. Shout out to Greg. Shout out to Rod. Shout out to Dark Power. Shout out to Walter. Shout out to James for the super chat. For the cash apps. Much appreciated. He's almost done, but let me get to it.
And I'm thinking, I don't know too many Carrie Popes. I honestly, I was like, wait, I know some good men, don't get me wrong, right? But I was like, wait, she would actually turn down a date if I had put Mr. Carrie Pope in front of her. She would have turned him down. Oh, he don't make enough money. He's not this. He's not that, right? Oh, he hasn't been divorced long enough. He's a pastor. Oh, they would have turned him down in a heartbeat. And that's when I knew I had to get out of that business. I was like, I knew I had to get out. I had to get out because I was like, my standards of good man doesn't match what these women want as clients. So I'm not going to be able to fulfill this for them. And it's going to mess them up even more because they're unrealistic. Exactly, Monique, unrealistic. So I came on today to just literally lay it out for y'all on how you guys are being unrealistic. And the biggest thing I'm going to leave you with is this, is that because most of you have never experienced the love that God has for you, God's best for you. You've never experienced the love of a husband. You've never experienced deep, true love. So you have no point of reference. All you can do in what you're doing is you're comparing these experiences to the past. But the past wasn't it, boo. The past didn't get it done. The past was not your best. The past, if it was your best, then you'd be married to him right now and happily married. So all these dudes you've dated or your previous husband or whatever was not God's best for you. And so what you tend to do is compare it to what you think you want, and you keep having these experiences and tweaking it. Well, I don't want that. I don't want to date a man with kids. Well, I don't want to do this, because it's all based on your limited experiences with the ones who were not the one. And it doesn't work that way, because every rule you could create, God has an exception for you. There's a man with kids who will rock your world. There is a man that's divorced that will love your socks off. There's a pastor that would be the very best man in the world for you. But you keep saying, I'll never date a pastor. I can't date no man with kids. Oh no, I can't date no short man, because that last time he had a Napoleon complex and he was just too much. Oh no, I can't date a man that's a workaholic, but yet you want a man to have money. Men who have money are workaholics. Clue, boo clue. This is the booze clues. Men who have money work hard for their money. You cannot complain about a man being a workaholic if you want him to have money. I hope that is sinking in for somebody. That's a booze clue for you, okay? Get you a boo. He can be a workaholic. Honey, you occupy yourself. You work on...
All right. We'll leave it there. Anyway, this was for many of us, this was our introduction to Rebecca Lynn Pope. And we had not... shout out to Eric. I hope I didn't mispronounce that, for the Cash App. Much appreciated. Compassionate and Callous, what's good with you, man? Broken Blade, what's up? Now, we hadn't really heard a lot of women that were willing to go public and talk about this. And she did out of frustration, I think, but I don't think she anticipated what would happen with it. So both the black and the white manosphere caught wind of this. Matter of fact, I still see white manosphere cats posting this within the last month. Like, they just discovered it, but this is, and I don't think she anticipated that it would blow up the way it did. So by the time we got to Kevin, and this was a well-framed talking point, she was really stepping back big time. Right. And, but one of the things she ended up doing, which I thought was kind of interesting, you can hear it a little bit in this one, in the clip I just played, but she started really delving in deep to these 80s talking points, about black men, right? You start to hear it a little more and more. And then the most recent clip I'm going to play, she delved into it pretty deep. But here we go. This is her on Kendra G's show, Fair Use. Again, I'm not playing the video clips. Y'all know why. I don't know what, I don't want to get hit with the copyright shit. So we just going to hear what we hear. But let's check it out.
What do you think the challenge is that women are having, black women in particular, when it comes to becoming a wife?
Keeping it 100,
yes.
There's not enough eligible black males who fit the needs of black women. By the time you dissect the demographics of finances, sexual orientation, what you end up drilling down into, because black women tend to want to marry black men.
Right.
So black women are excelling. They're getting accelerated degrees, graduate degrees, doctorate degrees. They're starting businesses. Black women are running circles around men.
Right.
And it's also shown in research that women want to marry on their same level of financial and educational status.
Yeah.
So if you're a black woman making $150,000 a year with a master's degree, you tend to want to marry a black man on that same level or higher. If black women are excelling at such an accelerated rate, how do men keep up with that?
Yeah. So that hit a couple months ago. And I remember being surprised, because I thought this was the same person that had this incredible revelation where she actually could now see everyday black men who were holding it down, right? Mr. Pope, as it were, no disrespect to the brother. From what I understand, has been handling business, but the way she talks about him, it really strikes me as alpha fucks beta bucks. It really does, But either way, she had this, epiphany, this transformation. And then fast forward to a couple months ago, now she's making these 80s statements about what black men are and aren't doing, which I found really interesting, right? When she starts talking about this, group of elite Black women that can no longer suffer waiting for Black men to catch up. I thought, this is interesting because I wrote about this. I just never published it, but I wrote a piece where I talked about what I call the social bubble. And you have some women who find, and some men that fall into this idea based on what media channels they listen to, based on a few relationships they have, friendships, associateships, based on the place they work or go to school, that constitutes the larger reality. When in actuality, it's just a social bubble. It's just a collection of places that you go to. And I've said this for the longest. If your assessment of how well Black women are doing is based on living in LA or Atlanta or New York and congregating with a couple of women that like to go to expensive restaurants and have conversations, if that's your measuring point, then you're not paying attention to what's going on to the reality. For the majority of the Black community, but even for the majority of Black women. This shit she's talking is not the majority. It's actually a fraction. And I'll give you a chance to look at some of this. Right? I'm gonna show you two different data sets, and they're separated by different approaches and time.
What do you think?
Okay, hold on. There we go. So you guys have seen this. Oh, shout out to Valdez in the house. He said lies. They're not running circles around us. They lie constantly and believe the lies they tell. Over 400,000 evictions last year. At least brother can pay their rent. See what I'm saying? Shout out to Valdez. Appreciate you coming through, man. And congrats on the success on your channel, good brother. But this is what we're talking about. So just check this out for a minute. So this is blackdemographics.com. Came out with this a little while ago. And it breaks down Gen X. Now I'm focusing on Gen X because both Rebecca Lynn Pope and myself are in that generation. And this is really what she's kind of referencing because she's using talking points that are decades old. And I don't really think she's doing any data on anything beyond Generation X. But let's actually look at it. So according to this, and she's really talking about 6 figures and up, right? This is tracking single Black Generation X, right? Average yearly salary. And it shows you that there are about 133,000 Black women who are earning over 6 figures and about 98,000 Black men, right? And this is about 5% of the population. So, a little around 30,000 more Black women earning 100,000 and up, right? I'll show you another one. Let me go ahead and share this one. This one is a little older, but it's tracking something different, right? All right, so this one, you guys know, I've used this in the past. If you're a long-time listener, I find it interesting. It's from the Wall Street Journal. It's called "What Percent Are You?" And it's a table you can use that takes into account everything from, sex to race to generation to highest level of education completed. Now it's based on 2014 data, but I don't think there's really a lot of changes in this. But I wanted to show you something. So when you look at this, we can go ahead and let's click on female. Let's click on Black. My mouse is tripping. And let's go to Gen X. When you click these 3 categories, what they tell you at the top is what percentage of that demographic falls into whichever range you're interested in, right? So 4%, right? 4% of Black Generation X women falls into that frame of 100,000 and more. This is what I mean when I say that she's in this kind of social bubble. These are the women that entertain her channel. These are the women that she caters to in terms of her work. Okay? These are the women. So she's in this social bubble, and these are the women she's constantly seeing, she's working with, they're paying for her classes, she's going to lunch with, she associates with, has dinner with. And so when she has these grand talking points about Black men and women, these are the women she's referencing, 4% of the population. And let me show you something else. Same demographics, but we're going to switch to male. Oh, damn it. Back to Black. 7%. Now, the difference between this and the Black demographics chart is that the Black demographics chart is doing 2 things. And shout out to BGS. We had a conversation about this. The first thing it's doing is the Black demographics chart is looking at single Black people, right? They don't include married folk and a number of others that fall into categories that don't constitute single for whatever reason. So, but Wall Street Journal is just looking at the entire population. So that said, There's actually 7. There's more Black men, even in Generation X. Now, Generation X was the generation that got hit most by the war on drugs. So from incarceration to death, if you compare the generations, Generation X has the most men that are vanished, right? And a lot of that has to do with what was going on at the time. And yet, despite that, there's still a larger percentage of Black men in Generation X earning 6 figures, right? This is a population that she says there's not enough of, right? The other thing that they differ on these two charts is one of the single chart from blackdemographics.com also takes into account large groups of people with no income. The Wall Street Journal, to my knowledge, doesn't necessarily do that. But nevertheless, I just kind of wanted to point this out real quick before we continue, right? She's using this idea, this very old set of ideas about who's available and who isn't available. And yet, the thing we noticed most about her first outward statement, the one that caught most of our attention, is she discovered that the man she fell for didn't have any of those standards. What's the first thing she said about him? He wasn't rolling in money. I thought that was interesting. She stopped doing this work, this matchmaking work, because she realized the women who were paying her were not only turning down excellent men by every standard conceivable, but would not date her, would not choose her husband. And that offended her, right? So what she discovered was that good men can come in all kinds of different forms, and they didn't need to meet up with this checklist that's been popular since the 1980s, her generation. She's part of the cadre of women that first formulated this checklist, and she's been using it ever since. And she didn't find a husband and a dependable relationship until she finally got rid of it, while at the same time trying to figure out how to cater to a bunch of women that still use it, right? But that being said, that's the crux of what she's doing with that. She's focusing on a very small social bubble, and she's not looking at the larger population of Black women, many of whom, as I pointed out, 96% of whom don't earn 6 figures. She's speaking to those women. Now, here's the thing. That group of women are often aspirational, and they like to live vicariously through celebrities as well. We find celebrity worship happening with many different demographics. It's not limited to them, but still, they want to live vicariously through successful women. So we have to go to the statistics to be sure about what we're talking about. And again, if 96% of women are not living this 6-figure life that she's talking about, then who's she talking for? But let's continue, because this is the latest clip that she came out with, where she's talking about not just quitting, but what Black women should do. I should have really wrote in here. This is where she kind of supports the whole notion, really, of divestment. Right? So here we go.
And I could tell some of them were really shocked by some of the things that I had to say. One of those things being, and now this video is going to need to come with a couple of warning labels, because I'm sure it's going to trigger some of you. Some of you are not going to want to hear what I have to say. But let's just remember, I'm married. Okay? Been married a couple times. Okay? I know what it is to get married, attract a husband, date someone, convert, court, get engaged, be married, right? So I'm going to take my time. 1, I have gotten in trouble before for saying Black women who want to exclusively marry Black men. We are in the middle of a crisis. Black men are in crisis. And anybody who denies that Black men are in crisis is ignoring the data, the science, the research, the statistics.
Okay, so she's really about to dig in. I'm going to put the link in the chat for those of you who might want to come up and kind of break this down with me. So you're welcome to come up. The other thing I wanted to say real quick before she delves in even deeper into her issues, the other part of the social bubble, just to be clear, is that they're, well, I'll say that for later, but here we go. Let's continue.
Hello, beautiful people. Been married a couple times. Okay. I know what it is to get married, attract a husband, date someone, convert, court, get engaged, be married, right? So I'm going to take my time. One, I have gotten in trouble before for saying Black women who want to exclusively marry Black men. We are in the middle of a crisis. Black men are in crisis. And anybody who denies that Black men are in crisis is ignoring the data, the science, the research, the statistics. It is not a figment of your imagination that there are not enough eligible Black men to marry. You are not imagining that. It is real. By the time, and like I said, I'm going to take my time with this. By the time you take that Black people are only 11% of the population, Black men being half of that 11%, by the time you remove the gay men, by the time you remove the mass incarceration, that when you see the populations of these prisons, and it is predominantly Black men that are, these prisons are full of Black men, full, at an exponential rate compared to our percentage of society. We're only 11% of the population, but the prisons are full of Black men. You take out the men who are already married. You take out the men who are on the down low gay, pretending to be straight, but ain't never going to marry a woman. Or if they do, they're bearding, fake.
She actually started talking about download. I mean, this is clean 1980s, early 1990s talking points. Now, shout out to Medium Man. He went through a lot of this. And if you haven't checked this channel out, check it out. He actually went through a lot of this point for point. Same video where he broke down, I think that was the same one he did, Dr. Umar. He also went into this. And he went point for point. He showed it was about less than 5%, which is, public information in terms of LGBT, in terms of incarceration. He went through those numbers. So if you get a chance, check that out. But the point is that, again, there may be more Black women than Black men, but there are viable dating options for Black women that Black women refuse to acknowledge, especially the Rebecca Lynn Popes, because they don't meet the fantastical standards that they've dreamed about for the longest. Last 40 years. And the irony here is that this is a woman who actually had to break those standards to find a good husband. And then she's now turning around, and instead of asking women, like she seemed to be implying in the first video, to actually explore Black men, the Black men around them that may not meet these crazy standards but are good damn men, now she's flipping the script and she's trying to take us somewhere else. Let's see. I'm going to bring up Chaos Rain. What's up, Chaos?
Hey, what's good, Dr. Johnson? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, man.
I'm going to continue to play this, but I want to get people to weigh in at different points. So, give us your thoughts so far as we continue to deal with some of this.
One thing I will deal about this, I cover this eventually, is that if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Since when you think that if you're going to talk about there's statistics and data, and this woman is a so-called once matchmaker, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that means you could provide this evidence, but you're sitting on your damn car. I'm sitting in your car, and tell the reference where people could look at to validate this information, correct? Since everybody got smartphones and computers, correct?
Right.
I've watched the whole thing. You probably have watched this. Probably your second time. Every man watched this. The one question no one really asked this woman, and I think they should put that in her comment section, is where's the data? Where's the actual evidence? Because now you're on the internet now. To sit and run this same taupe, you look stupid.
but you didn't have to do that, and really couldn't do it in the same way in the 1980s. So that's what I'm saying. She's kind of stuck in a different time period. In the 1980s, you can make these kind of sweeping statements, and people would have to actually go pick up a book, go to a library, do some research, and find this information out to see if you were right or wrong. You're absolutely right. It's a different era. It doesn't work that way, but she's still operating in that frame. She did this in the short video clip I just played. She just said, research says. Go ahead.
One more thing I want to add, because I think you heard the same age, possibly. I could be wrong. I look at her bio, because, when I look at people, I say, let me look who this woman is. What's her educated by? What age and all that. And I say, you're a Gen Xer. You were once a baby mama. Okay. You say you were married. I don't know. Maybe you probably married me once or twice. And now you're trying to stay relevant in a market that's actually collapsing.
Mm-hmm.
And when I mean collapsing, that majority of, depending what generation of young people we're dealing with, they're not out here dating like that,
Mm-hmm.
And some of the young men that still don't understand how this thing works, you catch a few of them. Right. I mean, a few of them, but you're not catching a whole lot of them. And proven evidence is the pushback in it. And one thing is evident. Old man did said this, because a lot of men are in the space and they talk about this. Gotta be more effective. Infect the social media to a point where if one person falls, someone has to be a replacement now. Because if you notice, Dr. Johnson, when the other known player, the guy that was teaching and giving women what they want to hear, that found that he's been messing around with a lot of women, there was someone already in replacement immediately. But we know when Mr. Samuel's gone, it's still, still trying to find that one person. So the Jumbotron is the last resort to really push back all this, because she could say this and no one's going to push it back, because who else is going to really push back and say, no, it's not? And everybody could sit there and say, Miss Pope, we like you, we love you, but you're speaking garbage right now.
Well, the other thing to keep in mind, and I'm going to go back to the clip. I just lost the timestamp, though, so y'all got to forgive me. But the other thing to keep in mind, too, is she's talking to a very small group of her clients, really. And she's using this to try and secure more. But she's not talking to us. And she's not expecting pushback from us. She's talking to a bubble of women. And here's the thing. There's a lot of aspirational women that want to be, as BGS would say, 92s, right?
Yep.
So she's talking to not only the 92s, she's talking to the aspirational 92, the 89s, those who want to be in that group. And so they like to kind of bolster this idea that there's a lot of them. And I think what Valdez was saying a little while ago is incredibly important. We're in a different era. This is post-pandemic. This is heading into a collapsing economy where you have a record number of Black women being evicted. So as she's talking about this 100,000 a year lifestyle and whether or not a man can keep up, she's lost touch with the fact that the majority of Black women are not living that life. They're struggling, and she's really out of touch with this. But I want to continue to play it. And I do apologize about missing the timestamp. Let's see where it is at this point. Let's see.
Hello, beautiful people who are dedicated to but two Black women in their life, and now they're writing, be responsible, and want to build a family. And I'm like, Carrie Pope, no. So, ladies, by the time you take out.
Okay, my bad. Just right there, she was basically saying that men like her husband believe that they're in ample supply. So she's saying that she has to correct her husband, right? That there aren't men like him. There aren't very many. Now, mind you, the only reason she found him is she broke from her traditional set of expectations and she found a good man. Wasn't expecting to, didn't see it coming, but she found one. Now she's trying to tell him that there are no other good men like him. Right? Because she went to the gym and saw a lot of Black men she thought were gay. She looks around, they're all in prison, so on and so forth. So that's where she is.
Can I ask you one point question, Mr. John, while you're looking for the time span? Is, she come around and found Mr. Pope, but my biggest question to ask, say, all right, so now you start realizing certain things after you've been gone through many bodies, Ms. Pope? Yeah. Because usually when women learn once they've gone through the streets and we all know what the streets mean, that now you come to realization that you come across one brother that will accept you after all your baggage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
so the message should be she should be preaching, say, if you're a woman like me, you're going to have to settle.
Well, she was trying to say initially that you think in order to find a good man, you may have to start to settle, but you might find he'll blow your mind in other areas and you won't even feel like you're settling. Then she reversed. She pivoted from that, or she's in the process of doing so. I'm gonna let her continue, but she's pivoted from that position because for a while she was trying to tell Black women, if you actually just break from this settling idea, you might actually find a man that exceeds your expectations. Now she's going in a different direction. So let's hear it.
The rappers, the gold teeth, the sagging pants, the young ones who just ain't even ready for marriage. Now you got a whole other demographic of Black men who have sworn off Black women. Whole movements created to completely giving up on Black women. Completely. That Black women are not marriage material and that Black women are not wife material. There's not all of Black men, but there's a percentage of Black men who feel that way. And all these daggone gender wars on social media and all the men who are beefing in, they've been hurt by 2 Black women in their life, and now they're writing off all Black women. And Black women don't do that.
Well, another question asked Dr. Johnson is
by Black men, drugged by Black men, completely ran over and heartbroken by Black men. But
so the narrative she's painting, right, is that they're all victims to Black men and they've been maligned. But go ahead and ask your question, Chaos, and then I'm going to bring you.
Yeah, she talks about these whole movements. You know, Ms. Pope, it would be nice to give labels and names to these movements because majority of people do not understand code that come to your channel. See, one thing I respect about the fellas, at least people gonna say names and define what they mean. These ladies, they like to use codified language and let you know, saying you're scapegoat because you're not being transparent. You're not being really in your definitions what you mean to the populace. And I lose a lot of respect. That's my opinion.
To actually name the movements that she's trying to malign right now would actually humanize them, which is the opposite of her goal. She doesn't want to humanize them because here's the thing. If you start talking about Ibmore and you start talking about MGTOW, you start talking about passport bros, and you actually let people hear what they have to say, you might actually find that more people understand them than not. I mean, I'm running across women now who are talking about making sure their sons leave the country to find wives. Right? I'm talking
That's
about
bad.
Women.
That's bad.
But this is what I'm saying. When Rebecca Lynn Pope just kind of maligns this whole group of men that now hate Black women, right? That does not allow for people to actually understand what they're saying. And so by maligning them in that way, she can get away with doing that and moving her audience in a certain direction rather than letting people actually go listen to what brothers have to say. And maybe there might be something else on the table that they could to take in. But I want to give Dub Will and then Chris a moment to kind of bring in some of their thoughts, and then we'll continue. Dub Will, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead. What do you think about this so far?
Well, first of all, I've been watching your content for a while. I've never actually talked to you, so it's a pleasure to actually talk to you. Honor to talk to you. Thank you for the work that you do.
I appreciate the support.
No problem. When this clip first came out, and the Umar clip previous came out, I mean, I ain't gonna lie, I was hot as fish grease, right? Because you're disrespecting Black men as a whole, and we know a lot of what you're saying is bullshit. But the more and more I think about it, I'm not as mad as I was because people like Rebecca Lynn Pope, people like Umar, people like the Derrick Jackson types, the thing about a panderer is they know they're lying. Mm-hmm. This is not a dumb woman. She knows these groups. She knows the spaces like the Black Manosphere, especially when with the rise and the passing of Kevin Samuels. She knows what she's saying is not true. Mm-hmm. So really what she's doing, and Umar especially too, because Umar is an educated dude, he knows what he's doing. They really are disrespecting the people they claim they're advocating for. They're really subconsciously telling black women, y'all are dumb for listening to me. Y'all are dumb because you're going to give me your money. In Umar's case, you're going to open your pocketbooks, open your legs to have me keep, telling you what you want to hear, knowing what I'm saying is crap. Mm-hmm. So just personally, I'm getting to the point now. I don't feel bad when I hear this stuff anymore because we like the data's out there. This is not the 80s. This is not the 70s where you had, like you said, you had to go research this stuff and go through a bunch of Bird of Midnight or find it. All this stuff is easily refutable. So really, the audience she's talking to, she's really disrespecting them. And I feel bad and I don't feel bad at the same time, but I don't feel bad for black men, especially black American men, because we know what's up.
Well, yeah, and she's talking to a group of people that have no vested interest in wanting to debunk what she's saying. So they'll take it at face value and run with it, and that's it. So you're absolutely right. In that respect, she is disrespecting them, but they're not going to push back against it, and she's fine with that.
Right. It's like people that like to get what's the word I'm looking for? Is they enjoy getting degraded or something. Like at first it's like, man, that's horrible, but like if that's what y'all want, go right ahead. You know what I'm saying? But the black man, especially the black American man, the ADOS man, we're gonna keep on pushing, and as the numbers show, we're doing better than our counterparts. So it is what it is at this point.
Well, it's in one respect, she's doing them a disservice because again, she keeps arguing that there are no other Carrie Popes out there, right? Where she got that conclusion from, sitting in the gym, looking around, thinking that so many brothers are gay. That's where she reached that conclusion. But it does a disservice to these women. But hey, instead of actually listening to what brothers have to say, let's go with the maligning and send them out of the country. But let me go ahead and bring in Chris, and then we got to bring in Roger. Chris, give us your thoughts.
I'm actually going to jot down Dr. Johnson. Appreciate you.
Okay, appreciate you, man.
Thank you so much. First of all, Dr. Johnson, I've been a huge fan of your work. As soon as I heard the other Dr. Johnson, Umar Johnson, I was like, we need to get Black Obi-Wan, Dr. T. Hasan Johnson in here to kick some tail, do his Sarisu trick, break that brother down. But so far as when I watched both this video and also the Dr. Umar video, I'm starting to see that with the work in the Black manosphere, brothers are getting, I think, first of all, several things I wanted to comment on is just one.
Well, be brief, though. We want to catch up.
I'm super brief. I think we're starting to see the diversity of men starting to speak up. Okay. And one thing I heard her say was that, in one of her videos, she said that, what good Black men have to realize is that there's not a lot of you to go around. So it's like, all of a sudden, now there are good Black men, and what did you do with them when they approached you? Well, you probably treated us like, a bag of crap. And, now it's like, I'm starting to see that this is kind of an Ishmael versus Isaac kind of situation, to use a biblical reference, where, it's like they sided a bit with, with the kind of, with kind of the Ishmaels, if you would, the Pookies, the Ray Rays. And now they're feeling their consequences. And now they want to walk up to Isaac and say, hey, knock, knock. I know you got the better money. I know you got the better stability. I know you got the morals and everything that won't jack my life up. Can I come in? It's like, no. Now I got sons. And now you're asking me, like Dr. Umar, you're asking me to give up, give up my time with my children to go raise your kids. Each moment that we spend away from our kids is a moment for their kids. That's not going to work. So when in terms of what she's talking about, I see a slow decay to the old order of what these Black women have been talking about. I see that, slowly but surely the pick me movement is starting to look like their narrative is starting to crumble, because everything that is remotely connected to loving, respecting, and honoring a good Black man is being carried into question, is being attacked. And now the world over is starting to see, when we speak to Black America, who do we speak to? Do we speak to the Black woman anymore? And can we trust her to be honest? And with the statistics that you've been showing, which has been excellent, I think they're starting to see maybe a more balanced conversation. definitely needs to take place in that regard. So I don't want to, go over my time, but yeah, I just wanted to share those thoughts. So be blessed,
No,
everyone.
I appreciate it. And just to put some of that in context, I went over the data where I was showing you guys the single income rates. I went over the data where I was showing you Gen X. But if you look at the Wall Street Journal's overall data across generations, right? You got black women that earn six figures are at about 3% for the entire population, according to the Wall Street Journal. Across generations, 3% earn over six figures. For white women, it's 5%. For Native American women and Hispanic women, it's 2%. Asian women are at 9%.
Yeah.
At 9%. Right now, for the men, you got black men, Native American men, and Hispanic men are about 5%. 5% make over six figure. For white men, you got 14%, and Asian men, you got about 19%. That's the breakdown overall. So this whole question of six-figure earnings, goes against the stereotypes of black men not earning at all. But the reality is, again, that doesn't include, as she talked about in her first video clip, good damn men like her husband, Harry Pope. And when you factor that in, all you got, it raises the percentage of available men. But that also means that you have to step back from these 1980s era talking points about what a good man is supposed to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And just to wrap up real quick, another thing that really pains me is when, I really do see an attack on black men specifically. And I don't think, it's been talked about a lot, but it seems like a cultural attack on black men that are raised in households with black fathers who, in turn also their fathers were raised by black fathers. It's like the same kind of silent contempt, because I'm raised only child by my mom and dad, a two-parent household. My parents been married for about 40 years. My grandparents, they were married by the time of their passing about 70 years. So it's a long succession, and their parents were married. It's a long succession, but when you take that to the community and you bring those facts up, and then you sit across from some of these modern women and you say, hey, look, I know and have been trained in the household I was raised in to know what I'm looking for in a marriage and in a partner for going long term, because my parents trained me and my aunts and uncles trained me, and I know what it looks like. I know what was modeled before me. These women they don't really have anything to show. They come,
Men like yourself that come from a family legacy like that scare women, many women, because it means that they have to be accountable to a structure that they haven't lived in and don't understand.
Right.
So when you come from multiple generations and your family is a family that actually honors men in the family, the men who have spent generations sacrificing for family, to come into a structure like that after never having experienced it, they're terrified. I would imagine you've run into those women.
Oh God, yeah. It's like they literally run the relationship. The dating will be going good until you start talking about family and background, and it's almost like they shame themselves out of the situation.
Oh yeah,
and they don't even let you give input, give feedback, give guidance. It's like all of a sudden they just ghost you. No more calls, no more nothing. It's all about, they go back to that template of, I'm Miss Success, I'm Miss Independent, I'm earning this money, but my family brings in this. And it's like, but you may have high value, but do you have high values?
And many of them don't want to be in a structure where they'll be held accountable, not only by your family in general, but also the women in your family. See, here's where the rubber really hits the road, right? Where you can have, if you operate like within her family structure, the women will let her run roughshod. She'll do whatever, and there's no accountability except when it comes to you meeting her fantastical standards. But when she has to come into your family domain, and the women in your family would check her for her behavior, check her for how she dresses, how she speaks, how she references you, how she talks about you when you're not in the room, whether she brings you a plate during a family event. There's so many levels of it for her to have to be accountable to that family structure. A lot of them share that.
And I just thought I'd share that as well, because it's very important in a part of our black male experience. And But I think that, you know, it's like, so far as that, it's like that is some of the reason why a lot of counterparts like myself, they'll get lucky and they'll find a good sister in the States, but a lot of them do head overseas. A lot of them may go to the African continent, and still it's as though within that paradigm that they will treat an African woman as though she's another race, you know, in that kind of relationship space, or try to, you know, get her into the sisterhood, which, you know, rarely works because they have, again, that strong family structure. It's kind of like their kryptonite.
Yeah.
I'm noticing.
Yeah, it is.
Really is.
And,
But
and
yeah,
brothers,
so with that, I'll go ahead and log off. But thank you so much for having me on.
Appreciate that. But keep in mind, people, you know, in scenarios like that, brothers are not just going out of the country to find cooperative women. They're also looking for women that are raised in a culture where there's an appreciation for manhood, for masculinity, for the role of men in families. They're looking for women that have been socialized in that type of culture, because where we are now, the idea of manhood and masculinity being inherently toxic has run rampant for at least the last decade. And there have been other levels, other variances of that prior to that. So we're in a culture where masculinity in and of itself is considered a problem, whereas in other cultures, it's venerated. So you have men that are, yes, looking for cooperative women, looking for women that aren't going to compete with them and fight with them at every turn for control of the relationship. But they're also looking for women that come out of cultures where fighting for control and competing for resources and dominance is not even how they're raised. But let me go ahead and bring in Roger Report. I want to get his thoughts before we continue with Rebecca Lynn Pope. What's good, man? Can you hear me? Oh, you're muted. Step away from the mic.
Okay. I can hear you fine. I can hear you fine. Thanks for allowing me up. Great to hear from you again. I'm gonna take it in. All right, I'm gonna take it in a slightly different pattern based on what I can pick up on. Rebecca Lynn Pope is simply a person, based on what I can pick up, is simply bad at her job.
Okay.
She gave herself a job to help women find husbands, and she's making every excuse in the book so nobody pays attention to the fact that she sucks at her job. Now, I don't know why she picked the job she sucks at. You know what I'm saying? That's her personal business why she picked the job she can't seem to perform at. Because normally when people go off on their own and they create a business for themselves and things like that, you go into something you're actually good at. Based on everything I'm hearing, she's bad at her job because she can't get these women husbands. So at the end of the day, whatever it is, she can't get them husbands, which means she's bad at her job. And now she's making excuses for why she can't give these women what they're paying for. She ain't delivering. So she's trying to blame men because she can't deliver. She don't need every single man. She only needs a select group of men to bring to these women at the end of the day. And she can't seem to get the job done.
Well, and I
that's
think
her fault.
I think there's less money in actually getting women to look at reality and deal with the men around them than there is selling them the fantastical idea. I mean, we all know how Derek Jackson was able to get over doing that very thing. How Steve Harvey's able to get over doing that very thing. You could sell a dream and you'll make far more money doing that, even though the dream is never delivered, than actually getting people to deal with reality. You know what I mean? The guy that you've seen every day for the last year, the one you've just not given the time of day, that's the cat you probably should have tried to talk to. And as Kevin said, you know, brilliantly at one point, most of the women complaining about not finding a husband, they actually met their husband. I remember the first night he said it. He said, you already met your husband. You met him years ago. You just curbed him. You know.
That's possible. I would disagree slightly because I don't think they met their husband. I think the dude who they think could have been their husband when they married me. You know what I'm saying? I'm at a firm belief. If you make it to 30 years old as a woman in American society, you're just simply a loser at the end of the day. But nobody wants to call it what it is. You got 12 years as an adult on the market. Nobody wanted your help. Men look for helpmeets. Nobody wants you to even help them. You're a loser. Point blank, period. And because no one wants to make women deal with the fact that they're losers, they don't adjust so they can become winners. The great thing about men is we start picking up when we're losers in certain situations when we're in grammar school. When you don't get picked for the team, you know, we picking the football team, you always get picked last or not at all. You understand, I'm a loser in this scenario. You know, if you got to split the class up, who gonna do an assignment together? Well, we don't really want you. We'll take y'all over here. Huh? I must be a loser in this. And so men fix themselves up so they can become women. People don't just hit women with the truth. They're losers at the end of the day. How can you be a woman, and especially in Black America, and make it to 30 years old and don't nobody want you to be their wife? And of course, women will say, well, somebody proposed to me. Well, if the guy proposed to you and you didn't accept it, obviously in her mind, that dude is a loser, which means only a loser proposed. So the issue is you're a loser because only losers will propose to you. You can't have it both ways. And I think Rebecca Lynn Pope is probably trying to sell her services. I have to guesstimate on this one, but she's probably trying to sell her services to a bunch of losers, a bunch of 30-year-old women that don't know how to listen to men so they can fix themselves up so somebody might take a chance on them. I'm pretty sure that's what the issue is.
I think you're being generous because I actually think her population range is older than that. I honestly believe.
Oh, no. I'm just saying it starts at 30. I'm just saying it starts. Yeah. That's the loser age. That's the loser age. You're officially a loser at 30. See, I can say, look at a woman and say, you're 25, but yeah, you're a loser. But once you hit 30, there's nothing to talk about. There's no debating on if she's a loser or not. She's officially a loser once she makes it to her 30th birthday and she's never been married.
Oh, I would bet money.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I would bet money she's dealing with 30 to 60-year-old clients. I bet money. She's all the way up to 60s. I bet money. Her clients are in that range. And she's promising.
Well, I bet you I could get them clients, or at least a good percentage of them, to some husbands, because I simply start telling them why they're losers and what they need to fix. And I bet they get results if they did what I told them to do.
But that's what the video that really introduced us to her, that's what she was actually starting to do. She hadn't developed it, but that was the direction she was starting to go into. And I think she found out that the sisterhood does not care about reality. I don't think they in that respect. I think she found out the hard way. I think that the clients started to scold her and push back, and she shifted gears and pivoted. But before I continue, actually, I want you and Chaos to tell people about when your shows are on, when they can catch you. So Roger, I want you to start that off. Tell people where you can stay, but I don't know if you have to go or if you stay. But either way, I want to get it on the record. Let people know where they can find you.
All right. My show is on 9 a.m. Central Time. 9 a.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday. Those are the guaranteed shows. Anything else can happen any other time, but the guaranteed shows are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Central Time.
All right. Chaos, tell people when your show is.
Well, I don't really have a set timetable. Usually the days that I stream, it varies from either one, like in a week, maybe 3 times I stream a week, to maybe 2, depending. It fluctuates, but it's me officially. I talk about pretty much everything. I'm like, I don't really have like a set notion of what I won't talk about per se on my channel. So, like I said, for those that want to know a little bit more, I have an archives of podcasting, and actual live stream shows and a few funny shorts and uploads on the channel. Okay. So for those that don't know me, they just go check it out for themselves. As you know, I did last stream that I might have tagged on Facebook, Dr. Johnson. I would advise everybody to check it out. And I think I have some else in store, maybe tomorrow, possibly. Okay. But like I said, that's a Chaos Brain show, so you expect pretty much everything. And like always, if people have any ideals, I put links to follow me and throw some reference. So I do need people's help because there's too much information on social media for me to find everything. So with anybody's help that they think is interesting that I should talk about, I'm an open book. Just shoot me something and we'll go from there.
This is why I put the banners on the screen so you guys can see how to find their channels, the exact spelling, all that kind of jazz. So if you're interested in hearing more about what these brothers do, make sure you check them out. I'm going to let her continue, and we'll hear what we hear.
Still don't give up on black men. Black men, on the other hand, whole demographic of black men just giving up on black women. There are Facebook groups of black men who are dedicated to the butt hurt hurting black men who want to blame black women for all their problems, as if a white woman or a Latino woman, somebody who don't want you, by the way, are going to deal with your shenanigans and craziness because they.
Now you see all of that maligning. See, at no point did she actually cite anybody that you should go listen to actually hear what black men have to say. She's gonna translate it for you. And basically, what all she's talking about when it comes to black men is there's this whole group that have quote unquote given up, and they think that other women are going to take their craziness, so on and so on. This is how some people are actually just surface level, hearing what they want to hear, reframing it and spitting it out for their own demographic, their own constituents, their own, whatever, to malign black men who are actually saying something. And the reality of it is you'd actually have a better chance of relating to the brothers around you if you actually took the time to listen to what the fuck they had to say. But no, we can't do that. So instead of actually listening to black men, she's going to malign them for you. You don't have to listen to them. And she's going to make sure that you understand that those men aren't about shit. And they're looking to find other women that will fall for their tricks, rather than the fact that brothers actually do have arguments and are making, and in many instances, creating genuine relationships with people who bother to actually explore who they are. She don't want to tell them that. She doesn't want to tell them that.
Okay.
They got even higher standards because their culture raises them to have higher standards than black women. So you got to step up in order to even date a white or other woman, because their culture teaches them to marry into financial security for a man to be a provider and protector. It's in their culture. So I'm in the gym the other morning.
Here we go.
I'm on the treadmill.
Here we go.
Black men working out all around.
Here it goes.
Paying attention. A good third to half the black men I see in the gym are gay. Ladies, and that's not my imagination.
Y'all tell me where she live. What city she live? Does she live in?
She live in Georgia, I think Atlanta.
I believe it's Atlanta.
Right.
Yeah.
So at some point, this gym that she went to on one given morning somehow became a reflection of black men across the country, but she's in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. Interesting. That's like going to San Francisco and making a judgment about men, white men in particular, across the board based on the men you saw in a gym one morning in San Francisco. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Everywhere I look, it is gay black men. It doesn't matter why. We can talk about why. You can go into all the whys, ladies. It doesn't matter.
But we want to know why, Miss Pope.
I'm on the phone with my therapist this week. I'm saying to her, I've never been more happy. I'm in such a great place. So much peace and balance, and Carrie pays 95% of the bills. I've never been in a place where I did not have the financial pressure. I am provided for and taken care of. I still work, but I'm not under the pressure I was previously. And I said, Dr. Pam, that's my therapist. Dr. Pam, is this how white women feel?
Oh, Jesus.
When a man is paying all the bills, I've never been here before. I'm just being honest.
So this is the low-key diss here, right? Because black men have never paid bills, right? That's the subtext to what we're talking about here. So we can go back generations and look at black men from different eras. And what she's trying to suggest is that it's so rampant that women are unaccustomed to black men paying bills at all, right? So there's a shaming tactic in there. And there's also a kind of dismissal of any type of accuracy in regard to the role that black men have played for generations in this kind of statement. And then she goes back to Carrie Pope paying 95% of the bills, even though she used to be with ballers that paid much more than that. But now she has some respect for Kerry Pope. But he's an isolated incident, right? Because black men don't do this. Any thoughts about this from either of you? Okay.
Well, there's only one way to really explain something like that. You know, black women have this love for Pookie, which I have defined as a brother who just simply refused to work, even though he's not wealthy, he doesn't already have income, and he's under 65. Yeah, you can find that dynamic if you go look for somebody who doesn't have anything. Sure, you can be a woman who pays the bills. But why? How can a black woman have a man who don't pay bills unless she wants one? There's too many brothers with jobs out here. You know, point blank period. Just way too many brothers with jobs. There's way too many brothers with businesses. So if you're dealing with a man who won't pay bills, that's a definite choice. Because, you know, there's no group of men, there's no easy place to find a bunch of men like that unless you go to a street corner. You're looking for guys standing on the street corner, sure you can find those guys. Now, if she's referring to the type of men she used to being with, she's talking about a bunch of random guys who supposedly was doing very well for themselves and they didn't want to pay her bills. That's a whole different thing. A woman who can't get a man to pay her bills, that's a personal issue. So she's trying to take a personal issue and blanket black American men with her personal issue that she's dealing with men that see her as unworthy of paying bills for, because she already said they got money. So if they got the money and won't pay, that's a you thing. Now, if we can find that black men just don't have money, that's a different thing. But according to statistics, that's just not true.
Well, she's
so
also
won't pay her bill.
Oh, okay. No, and I think what she's also missed as well. She's not actually using white people as a standard or white women. She's using what she imagines white women to live, the lives they live. This is about what she imagines they do, right? Because if you look at the reality from the 1970s, a two-person income, two-income family became much the norm, even in white society. The dollar bill flattened out in the 1970s. So two-parent incomes were a norm, not just in the black community, but across America. So this idea that she has about white women having all their bills paid, again, she's in a bubble. She's not talking about white women. She's talking about what she imagines about white women. And even more, she's talking about what she imagines about an elite subset of white women. Because I told you earlier on that when it comes to even white folks, 5% of women are making over six figures, 14% of men. And six figures doesn't mean what it meant in the 1980s. If you make $100,000 a year now, that is not working the way it did in 1984. It's not. I've told people this repeatedly. If you make if you make $100,000 a year right now, basically that means your bills are paid. That's about it. You're not balling, going to other countries every 2 or 3 months. That's not what that is. Your bills are paid, and you have something you're putting away for savings. That's pretty much what $100,000 a year is now, especially if you live in a place like California or Georgia, something of that matter.
Right? I think she's also speaking from a very selfish perspective, because I'm just listening to words she's saying. She's saying, my husband paid 95% of the bills. Which means what? She pays 5% of the bills. Which means what? She got all this extra money that her husband has no access to.
Yes.
Sounds crazy to me. Why would I want to sign up for something like that? My woman's gonna work, and then she keeps 95% of her own money. Well, I can't even say 95% of her own money. She, keeping close to 100% of her own money, because she's only gonna pay 5% of the household bills, even though she gets to live in the household and benefit from us having a household. But she gonna keep her money, do whatever she want with. Why would I even want to take that deal?
Tell me this, man. What happens when they get a divorce? What does a person like Rebecca Lynn Pope? I was saying, what does a person like Rebecca Lynn Pope do to a Kerry Pope in a divorce?
He gets a good amount of alimony.
Yeah, alimony.
She's gonna present the fact that that he been paying 95% of the bills. So,
exactly.
we need to just keep that with him.
Exactly. And she's going to keep everything she's earning now. That's not part of any kind of bill that she's paying. So she's already set up to do extremely well if she chooses to leave him at any point. Right. But let's continue. God dang it. There we go.
Y'all, I've been 50-50. I've done my part. I've done more than my part. Y'all have been in courses with me. I've been honest. I've paid 90% of the bills. I've been paying all the bills at times in different marriages. I've been in all the different situations. It's the first time in my life that a man is taking care of me. Thank you, Carrie Anthony Pope. But I said, this is the reality for a lot of other women. This is the reality for a lot of Latin women, a lot of white women. This is what it feels like to not have the financial burdens of a household on you. Right now, I'm at my best. I don't wake up stressed.
This woman is delusional. As I told you, Asians are about at 10 and 20% as far as women and men earning six figures. Everybody else is a fraction of that. So what she's imagining is a norm for other people that somehow Black women don't get. It's not a norm for anybody. It's not a norm for anybody. If you're anywhere between 3 and 6% of your population earning six figures, then six-figure lifestyle is not a norm. It's an elite lifestyle. And as I said, it's not what you think it is. Because the overwhelming majority of six-figure earners are in the low six figures. And that's if they haven't lost their job or their housing in this last couple months. But the reality is it still just means that your bills are paid. That's pretty much it. You're not balling out of control.
I'm able to lean into my feminine.
Oh,
I am
Jesus.
cooking and healthy and watching, monitoring the things in the family, helping to take care of Carrie with his health and his food, and I'm ease and flow, and things are just so amazing. And I began to think, and my therapist said to me, she says, Rebecca, you are experiencing something that very few Black women will ever experience. You are experiencing what very few Black women will ever experience. This is from a therapist.
She's framing that as the failure of Black men rather than as the reality of most of the various racial groups in America at this moment. She's confusing the two. This is not the failure of Black men that most Black women are not able to live an elite life. This is the reality of the world. It is what it is. You know what I mean? This is fantastical thinking at its best.
The therapist is in her 50s. She's been a therapist for over 30 years. She is so experienced, so wisdom, knowledge, woman of God. She's amazing. And if you reverse engineer what she's saying, ladies, she's saying to you what I'm saying. If you are a Black woman and you want to be married and you want to lean into your feminine and you want to be more provided for, not to say you don't work. You guys know how hard I work. My money is now going into investments. My money is able to go into savings. We're able to do so much more with my money if Carrie's paying 95% of the bills. It's a partnership. But if you are a Black woman right now, you watch this video on YouTube and you decide that I really do want to be married, Rebecca. One, this is what I said the other night in class. Please pray and open your heart to ask God to help you go beyond dating Black men.
There we go.
You have to open up your options. To love and be loved is one of the biggest blessings in the whole wide world. And ladies, listen, you can say, Rebecca, I want
to love and be loved as long as he's a six-figure earner. 4% of Black America earns that across the board. 10% of white America earns that across the board. That means for white folks, who she seems to be basing her ideas off of, 90% of them do not earn $100,000 a year. 90%. And for us, it's 96%. But she's telling these women that the problem is that Black men have failed and they need to go find men elsewhere. Anyone want to say anything about that before I go back to her video?
What she sounds like a nutbag when it
Well,
comes
let me
to
say something.
what information has. Oh, go ahead, Cass. Go ahead.
Chaos, can you hear us?
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to answer the early question. Yeah, I can hear me good?
Yeah,
Is
we
my
can hear
audio
you now.
this internet game? I noticed that. Yeah, I was saying, I wish I could answer the first question before I had some internet issues. We're not really doing the numbers of how many Americans could provide this amount of money. I think most majority of Black women, I think the message they're trying to point out is they want to share. What do I mean by share? No, they say they want to share, man. I said, okay, so you're going to have to find a man that has that bigger bag, and you're going to have to share. And they don't want to hear this, but let's be honest. You will share anyway. Stop the cap.
Yeah, most of them just want plausible
If a man makes
deniability as
more
far as
than
sharing. They want plausible deniability when
And
it
let's
comes
be
to
honest,
sharing.
Dr. Johnson.
What'd you say?
Let's be honest, Dr. Johnson. Let's be honest. Majority of women, they say they want this is because they were fed a fantasy through television. Media shapes your reality. When they watch social media and they see the possibilities of owning possessions and having this instead of other factors, it lets you know that what they see on television shapes their reality and what they want that they cannot obtain. And let's say if they explore their options, right? You think in competition, which last time I checked, ladies said they want to compete to no man, right? Last time I checked, right? You think they're going to compete with other groups of women, especially Asian women? Now, because if it's not European women, who's the other top list that other men want to see? Asian women, right?
Well,
so
at the end of the day, the question
number
comes down to
one, you are last.
The question comes down to which men are pursuing or are willing to pursue and compete for Black women. And the reality of it is the only group of men that are willing to do that are African American men. It is what it is. That's the primary demographic that chases American Black women. Other groups of men are not beating down Black women's door. Now, I would say for sex, yeah, I think that there's a conquest element that other groups of men have as far as having sex with American Black women. But in terms of long-term relationships and marriages, it's only going to be a fraction of Black women that are going to be able to do that. But instead of actually teaching women to engage men on realistic terms, the men in the environment that they're in, she's going to tell them to do something that yields an even more remote conclusion that in regard to what it is they want. But continue. Go ahead and finish up your statement. I want Roger to kind of weigh in, and I'm gonna go back.
I'm gonna jump back in. I just gotta correct this issue. Continue with the tape.
Okay, Roger, did you want to say anything before?
Yeah, well, yeah, she is. But you know what? But I do say stupidity is a choice. You got to choose to be stupid. You know, when most American households, well, it only helps around 20% of American households. Last I checked, it made six figures, period. And that includes a bunch of dual income folk. The average home in America, I know in 2017, it said that the average for American households is only 67,000. So,
and that's the majority of them, a good strong majority of them. You know, the reality is the majority of that population is actually more at like the 21,000 and the 34,000 range, or I should say 36,000. So even when you say 65,000 or around there, that 65 includes, you know, a good portion of people, but the majority of them are down at the $21,000 and $36,000 level per household prior to taxes by multiple earners in the household, right? So we're talking 21,000, 36,000. That's the majority of Black America. So what she's doing is really leading a lot of women astray and contributing to this fantastical thinking that makes the real everyday cat who's standing in front of this woman, who could be many a woman's partner or husband, irrelevant and invisible, because women are buying into this idea that there's a whole bunch of six-figure earners walking around that they're just missing by a few minutes when they get to the gym. They just missed them. Almost lost it. I've been telling women for the longest, y'all are competing for the same 3 dudes in every. But go ahead.
No, I mean I agree because the thing is when I look at American households and what people actually make, and then you say, well, I want these, guys is making this amount of money, and truth be told, they don't even want 6-figure men. I've said for the longest of time, they really want 7 to 8-figure men. If you actually listen to what they want provided for as a lifestyle, 6 figures is just a number that got popular, so they use it. They don't even know what they're talking about.
Yes.
Because there are no 6-figure men who can provide what they say they want. That just don't exist. That's so.
You are absolutely right, man. The 6 figures is a language pulled from the 1980s. 6 figures is the 6 figures in the 80s is the 7 figures of today, and maybe a little bit of an exaggeration, but not a lot. It's the 7 figures of today. You are absolutely right. And the chances of the average woman even being in the same space as a 7-figure earner is remote. It's lottery level. And that's what Rebecca Lynn Pope is actually doing. She's trying to sell a lottery mentality to women who are passing up everyday men that they might be a good match for to chase a dream that is mathematically unrealistic.
Dr. Hasan Johnson, to be perfectly honest with you, I have played the lottery. My rule is I will not play unless it's up to at least $200 million. Why does it have to be so high for me to even consider playing? Because if I buy a ticket, I know honestly I'm just about throwing some money away. So I think is just what you just said. You have women looking to be lottery winners, and she's teaching not to even play. I know I can't win if I don't play. I'm not really betting on the lottery coming through. What I'm saying? I have no life plans on if I win the lottery because it's not realistic for most people to win. It's just not. So therefore, I act like it's not realistic. But she's teaching women to look for lottery outcomes, and she's actually telling them don't even play the game.
Right.
Yeah, because she ain't telling them to be what a man wants who make that type of money. She ain't telling them that. So I know my way of thinking could be a little bit new. If I hit 6 figures and I'm heading that direction, I don't even want to talk to you no more. And I'm talking about black women. I don't want to talk to you no more. My thing is that we've been talking. We went to school together and all this other stuff. We've been all church together, work together, all kinds of stuff. If I hit 6 figures, why I'm talking to you? You could have had me if you wanted me. So so at the end of the day, I'm saying, well, I mean, of course, not all of them, but somebody could have had me at the end of the day. I wasn't, saying you got to be an absolute dime since I've been in 8th grade. You know what I'm saying? Like, I could have been made a deal with somebody. Okay. So at the end of the day, I don't even think it's right for a brother to get that successful. And if he ain't married yet, he shouldn't even be considering sisters. If somebody dissed you for that much, just go somewhere else at that point. That's the way I look at it.
Can I ask you a serious question?
That was a serious statement. I'm gonna let you know that was a serious statement. I think brothers hitting 6 figures should just be looking for something else from Jump Street. Because if you can't make a match with a random woman, tell me the pot is bad. I should be able to go to a grocery store and find a wife. I shouldn't have to do much for it, to find a wife somewhere. People act like it's supposed to be a mythical, magical thing. No, it's just you're supposed to be a human being raised to be a decent person that's willing to work to achieve something with somebody else. If you can't find that combination in the average person, something's wrong with the average person.
Well, and the institution of marriage is greatly misunderstood. I mean, BGS covered this about a week ago, I guess. They were talking about the very idea of marriage is not understood in its proper context. Adding in all of these fantastical ideas of what your partner is supposed to do for you. That is not even what our grandparents and great-grandparents did. You found somebody you could get along with. You found somebody that you might be able to go through life with. And that was it. It wasn't about this Walt Disney fall in love, become a millionaire bullshit. Now I want to welcome Jared. That says Matt Wee Sports and Mr. Z. Mr. Z, I'm glad you came up. I want to play a little bit more. Then I'm gonna come to you guys, you three first in order, in terms of responding to this next clip. So here we go.
A black man. I want a black man. I don't want to date other Rebecca. I want a black man. That's fine. I'm married to a black man. I am not denying you a black man. I'm not. What I'm simply saying is that if you've been barking up that tree and that's not flowing for you, and you don't have a ring on your finger, and you're dating and the options you're getting are not marriage material, I'm saying that it is better for you to be loved by a good man rather than just a black man. I'm saying it is not meant for you as a woman to keep navigating life by yourself, paying all the bills by yourself, the pressure of independent single women. I just had lunch with my new friend, Iyabo, Dr. Iyabo. And she said, black men are black men. She's from Africa. And she said she's married to a white man now. And she said, it ain't no different with the African men. It's still the BS. We have a cultural issue, guys. Cultural issue. And if you want to be married, let me stay on point. If you want to be married, I am giving you my best advice that the love of a good man doesn't matter if he's green, purple, yellow. It doesn't matter if he is daggone fuchsia. I would rather you as a woman know what it is to be loved and cared and provided for than to stay out here navigating life all by yourself. All by yourself.
Okay, so she she just included a continent of men.
Yes.
She said the person she met with was African. That's a continent. That's not a country.
I bet she's Nigerian.
54 countries.
But she didn't say Ghanaian, and it's the same with Ghanaian men. She said African men. So now African men and African American men are not good enough. And the only group she's really advocated for as far as directing women to is white men, right? That's the solution. Let me go ahead and get Jared to weigh in, then Matt, and Mr. Z first on this. Go ahead.
First of all, I just want to thank you, Doc. I was first introduced you by a colleague, Dr. Brandon Gamble. He's a mentor and a brother of mine.
Yeah, I know, Doc. Yeah.
So I appreciate it.
Oh boy.
My question, my feeling about it is I always kind of find it weird how Black women, Black feminists always talk about patriarchy and white patriarchy and how it's so oppressive. But when you listen to their talking points, it kind of sounds like they worship it in some aspects or in most aspects of it. Like, we're so loyal to Black men, and all they do is like they sleep around with other women and they do all these negative things. But when you listen to what they actually have to say, and this is not all, but it's like you said, it's an underlying misandry, anti-Black misandry, and it's just sounds like a worship of white men.
Yeah.
And so it's
no, that's it. That's exactly what I think she did, because what she's expanded it from Black American men to African men, right? Which is a huge, jump in and of itself. So her problem is clearly that there's something wrong with Black men of any sort, and the only solution she's really pushing for is white men. I think you're on it. Let me go ahead and get Matt to weigh in real quick.
Hey there, how you doing today?
Good. How about yourself?
Doing good. I think sometimes as Black men we're susceptible to a logical fallacy called literalism, and what literalism is is when somebody tells you something, sometimes we take what's being said to us in its most literal form rather than understanding the spirit in which the person is telling us what it is that they're saying. And in this particular instance, when folks like Rebecca Lynn Pope, when women like Rebecca Lynn Pope say things like other races are making X amount of dollars and living this kind of lifestyle, we go into excruciating detail, breaking down the numbers to such a degree that like the demands of what these women are saying are like what they're saying is just like utterly ridiculous. Everybody would understand this. Even the most like a less intelligent person of a different group would understand that this kind of lifestyle is not the norm. But for some reason, this particular group of women keeps saying these ridiculous things, and then we address these lies about the money, the lifestyle, things of this nature, in such a way that addressing that dignifying those things with such a lengthy explanation actually gives the absurd statement legs, because we're treating it as though this is something that somebody of like a reasonable amount of mental faculties would actually believe, when this is not the case. They're willing to go as far as to gaslight us for the rhetorical benefit of carrying out the kind of lifestyle that they do want, which is they want to be by themselves and then interact with compromised men, unless you're making such an obscene amount of money that they're willing to cooperate with you for such a short period of time. So when you Rebecca Lynn Pope put out this video, she spoke about the kind of guys that she was dealing with for decades. She spoke about having a child with a kind of guy that based on her explanation of these guys that she was dealing with, these aren't going to be the kinds of guys that, well, some of them were guys with money, but a lot of them were guys that weren't with money, and she was in some very compromised positions with compromised guys, and then afterwards she had a change of heart. And when you look at the idea that these women want guys of a certain level, there are plenty of guys who participate in these online spaces and interact with experts like yourself in BGS, and these guys make in excess of 6 figures, but they're not having there's somehow simultaneously a high amount of demand for these guys. But when you talk to these guys aren't experiencing that level of demand. So we end up dignifying things that we know aren't true. We have guys who participate on these panels who come from obviously the bottom side, who think that, well, if I make this certain amount of money, then I'm going to have this kind of experience. And then you have doctors, you have engineers, you have accountants who are telling you that no, when you make this kind of money, it doesn't change. You're going to be disrespected, you're going to be exploited. They still don't want to compete, things of this nature.
Okay. Let me get Mr. Z in here. Mr. Z, can you hear us?
What's going on? Yes. I'm sorry, Dr. T. Yes, Dr. T. Look, first, thank you for having me up.
Of course.
Y'all already know I'm gonna come in with the nukes and the oh God. Okay, so Rebecca Lynn Pope, we already know, hit us with a bunch of old 90s stereotypes. I thought this was dead. It's like it almost feels like she just watched Waiting to Excel, and she just she had to record herself I know what I'm going to talk about, this 20-plus-year-old movie. So going through the numbers, and I understand what the brother was saying earlier, but I'm gonna do it anyway, because I just like to make sure that we put salt in the wound of the insanity that they're speaking, right? And I will dignify it, because it's fun to me. And so it is, because first, Africa, 54 countries, thousands of tribes, something like 2,000, 3,000 tribes, somewhere around there, in 54 countries. So we're getting real close to eugenics, everyone. We're getting real close to racial stereotypes. So she said cultural, but if you're including the entire continent of Africa, and let's be clear, she's talking about sub-Saharan Africa. She ain't talking about the Arabs in the north. So you're making a racial comment here. That we're no longer talking about cultural. You're saying cultural, but you're making a racial argument. Now we're pretty much in Auschwitz now. I don't know. I know a lot of people might think I'm being extra. I might be overstating. I might be being hyperbolic. I'm not. Right. That's number one. Number two, going to what Raj was saying earlier. something like half of American households earn something like $70,000 a year, right? That's not including the black. That's including the black ones, but that's not exclusive to the black women. That's all households in America, somewhere around 67, 70,000. 1/3 of households in America earn about 100 and more or more. I don't know what Rebecca Lynn Pope is talking about. You know, this type of talk, pre high speed internet, you could have got away with this, you know, pre high speed internet. You could have said this on Oprah or Ricky Lake, and you would get like minimal pushback from people in the audience because most people just didn't have this type of information, you know, at their fingertips, particularly black men. But now we're in the 21st century with high speed internet, everybody. Like you got walking encyclopedias and dictionaries in your hand. So Rebecca Lynn Pope just I don't, maybe she doesn't understand the year we're in. That's number two. Number three, okay, this type of talk of like, you know, a good man is better than the dream of a black man worth a damn, which is pretty much what Rebecca Lynn Pope was saying just now. Like, any man is better than this weird ass fictitious dream y'all have of like this mythical magical black man. You know, speaking of what Raj was saying with the mythical magical men, right? Problem. Rebecca Lynn Pope, and to all you others, y'all not being honest. It's not your loyalty. It's their anti-blackness, right? Like you know, I know it's none of our concern what these people feel and what they think. I'm talking about these particular type of black women. I know a lot of people would rather like just let them live in their fantasy, but this weird fantasy is much of the reason why they speak the way they do and they advocate the way they do, and then it ends up biting black men in real life in the rear end, right? So my pushback to this idea of black women's loyalty being the issue is because it still assumes a moral standing above black men. Black men aren't loyal to black women, so the second we have two pennies to rub together, we run out the black community. And it assumes that black women aren't attempting to do the same thing, right? We already know something like 15% of children born in the black community are born to non-black fathers, right? And that's for the women that actually have those children with those men. This is not a question of loyalty. This is not a question of black women, you know, holding out hope for this great black man, and then they're missing their opportunities. Like you were saying, Dr. T, they just missed that. They just missed the baller dude by 5 seconds. If they just would have stayed on the train for another 5 seconds or to the next stop, right? Or you know, the billionaire walks into the restaurant that they work at. This is foolishness. Rebecca Lynn Pope and you know, Dr. Umar Johnson, they're selling these type of dreams. I don't think it works in the long run. We've done this already. We've done this for decades, and it gets us to where we are now. A bunch of delusional people talking foolishly on the internet instead of hooking up with a stable man, right? What's the median income for men in America? Something like 42 grand a year, something like that, for men in general, not even just for black men. So I don't know what Rebecca Lynn Pope is talking about. These people sound crazy with their lottery dream ideas, like Raj was saying before, like the brother was saying. I do entertain them with this type of talk because I just like to see them, you know, squirm, because they don't really have anywhere to go when you start dropping numbers on them. And, you know, I'll pause right there.
Okay. Respectfully, Miss Dr. T. Hasan Johnson, you mind if I interject on that point?
Briefly, because I want to get back to this video.
All right. What I want to say is sometimes as black men, we end up running from one side. We end up in these conversations where we're running from one side of the field to the other. And in this particular case, they're saying these ridiculous things in order to justify holding out because they don't want to deal with a more normal brother, because it's going to be a patriarchal situation. And they obviously don't believe this because they're also content to deal with our worst. We have a sociological problem in our community where many of these women are content to deal with our worst. And because the focal point of this conversation is now dealing with the extreme demands that they're making, now we completely have effectively erased the issue that plagues our community, where they're consolidating on the worst, and then we're now not mindlessly, but we're speaking in such a way that it erases the phenomenon of them dealing with our worst. So what they want to divorce themselves from us by either dealing with our worst to justify walking away, or they want to make outlandish demands in order to prevent them, in order to keep themselves from dealing with the guys that make up the bulk of the middle. And the middle is now defined as that range from like 50K all the way to 150K. And the reason why they mock us is because sometimes in these conversations we have no continuity. So when I say don't dignify what it is that they're saying, is what I'm saying is you have to address things in context, and we have to have continuity. And we know that their standards aren't that high because we also have the issue that we have with who they're choosing and also how they're raising their sons.
Well, the standards that they're talking about are for something beyond sex and reproduction, for one. And so they're holding out this question of relationship and marriage to men that meet these fantastical standards, whereas they're reproducing with whomever. That's one thing. The other thing, as far as the statements you were making, even in the chats about going through the statistics, at the end of the day, I'm a classroom teacher. If you're going to present this stuff, I want to go through it mainly because when I talk to my students, they have no idea what the statistics are. Even though we live in an era where data is more accessible than anything, what I find looking for more than anything else, especially the youth, it's not that they're looking for information. They're looking for perspective because they have so much information available to them that they actually check out. This is what I've noticed about the students that come into my classroom. And to some extent, the men that I've ran into online here. It's not that the data is something we all just know and we're entertaining these folks in ways we shouldn't be. It's actually that many don't know what the data actually is. And especially in an era where people are willing to fabricate data or misunderstand it and throw it around, you have all this confusion out here that I do find it necessary to go through for the brothers in particular. I'm not doing this for everybody. My channel is particularly for Black men. So I do want us to know what the data is. And unfortunately, for people who do know what it is, you may have to sit through a few minutes of me going through that. But it's mainly because I find there's a lot of brothers that actually don't know. So I do want there some clarity with that. But I do agree with you that this is a deflection, you know, from a truth that they don't want to articulate very straightforward. Because Rebecca Lynn Pope has to know. She has to. You cannot be a coach, a dating coach or a matchmaker for Black women and be oblivious to the fact that the majority of Black women will not be able to have relationships or marriages with non-Black men. She has to know that. She can't be as effective as she was, however effective she was at a certain point in time, and not know that. And if she doesn't, then that's just profoundly shocking. But you know, she's pushing it anyway, and I think the people that cater to her services are paying for it. You know,
Dr. T, if you don't mind, so the this I call it's luxury dating, right? There's a content creator on here, woman content creator. From my understanding, she's single, somewhat attractive, right? And this young lady, she's earning 6 figures on YouTube, right? Okay. And she speaks about wanting to be a woman of leisure. In other words, and she straight up said it, like, you know, if I'm not going to be a kept woman, then what's the point? And that, I'm saying that mentality permeates all the way down to even some of your McDonald's workers, right? That's the idea. There is no point in dating you and potentially being married and going through the way they speak about this labor, right? Going through the labor of pregnancy, going through the labor of being your girlfriend or your wife, if I'm not going to be kept, right? And I think that this is something that Black men have to grapple with, not only in the Black community, particularly in the Black community, but maybe I see it as a very neoliberal assessment of men and masculinity. And it's this, what are you paying me to be attached to you? Right? And I think that's something we have to grapple with. It's no longer about security for many women, particularly these kind of loud, you know, women. And now it's about luxury. It's a luxury date, like how they just slap an apartment together and put some fancy tile and call it a luxury apartment. Now it's about luxury dating. That's what these women want to engage in and be in a forever luxurious lifestyle, if they even consider anything more than dating you, a serious relationship, marriage. You know, I think that's something we need to grapple. And that's why I would argue this brother is correct. Like that astronomical kind of way they're speaking is really, it really is about gaslighting you, but it's also about saying, why would I even entertain something if it's not, if I don't get to stunt on my frenemies, which they call friends, but they're really not friends. Anyway, I'll pause right there.
But you know what the rub is? The rub is that they're still making these talking points in an economic moment that is so in flux that being out of touch is not even the proper phrase for it. I mean, again, what did Valdez say earlier in the show? 400,000 evictions, and you're talking about luxury dating. I mean, there's a majority of women, I would argue, that are far more concerned with just getting help, let alone and not even talking about luxury, But let me get back to this. So let's see what else.
When I say one thing real quick, just very short and sweet.
Go ahead.
Black men got to just accept the reality. Then black women just simply charge you. They're trying to charge you for being black.
Black tax.
None of these standards none of these standards go into place as soon as the man is white. Any white man will do. And by white, I mean any non-black man, because they're going to always focus on white men. It's all. They're just trying to charge us for being.
Yeah. I've seen cases where white men that don't even have jobs are considered a better option than men that do. Black men that have them.
Well, you got to understand that white skin removes all imperfections. So, yeah. But I'm going to let you play more. I want to respond to back up. Go ahead.
Okay.
Waiting for a black man when they are few and far between. Those of you who are good men, black men, we love you and appreciate you. I'm not putting down black men, Aunt Weezy 86. I'm simply speaking about real life and real statistics, real numbers.
That she has not revealed
There's
yet.
Not enough black men. You want to know why black women are the least married demographic? Because there's not enough marriage material black men. If you are a woman, and black women are some of the most high achieving demographics of women on people on earth. Black women are pursuing next level education. Every black woman I know is got multiple degrees, graduate degrees, constantly pursuing goals, education, income, taking courses, trying to improve themselves. And at the end of the day, where are black men at? Where are they doing the work to make themselves marriage material? Because
did she just make getting degrees and owning businesses the measure of being marriage material?
Yes.
Yes, she did.
If you're black, sure. Y'all gonna pay me to reproduce with a nigga. That's what she's saying. Y'all gonna pay me to reproduce with a nigga.
That's what I heard.
I'm just wondering how many master's degrees Carrie Pope has.
Very little.
And it's once again, this is the moral high ground assumption, right? It's first of all, rewind. We don't have to make ourselves marriage material. It's great. It's good, right? To continue the species, to continue the Black American, I guess, ethnicity. Yeah, that's great, but we don't have. That's not a requirement. Number one. Number two. Once again, this is assuming, like Dr. T is speaking to, that having degrees and having this level of post high school education automatically makes you a better partner, a better wife, a better husband. Clearly, the divorce rate doesn't speak to that.
No.
More wealth, because women file for the majority of divorces, might mitigate for some of that, right? So, American Enterprise Institute published a study it's like 4 or 5 years ago now. 26% of poor Americans are married, 39% of middle class Americans, 56% of upper middle class and above. We already know that the poorer you are, the more likely you are not to get divorced. So once again, and then, factoring in also that women file for 70 to 80% of divorces. This is about the money. This is not about character flaw. And what Miss Pope is speaking to is character flaw. Just say that you charge in black men with black tax, like Roger's speaking to, number one. Number two, say that you can be bought, and then we get into some real sketchy territory, because then I'm actually be a streetwalker, and then just we could continue the conversation from there. Right? You don't have to put all the moral stuff on it and all the superiority and this education thing. It's really not about that. We're living in a neoliberal era. Y'all view men as status symbols. Okay, cool. That's something that's been going on throughout human history, and call it a thing, and then deal with the consequences on the other side. Stop acting like you want a partner. You don't actually want a partner, because if we was treating this relationship and marriage thing like a business, if we were really treating it like a business, it would look very ugly on women's side. It would look very ugly, but they don't really actually want that. They want a hybrid between everything, right? That's why you can't pin them to anything. And I pause right there. That's my little rant.
No, they do, because they want to be able to cherry pick whatever the values are and the issues are that they want to accept to, but downplay all the rest of them. So it's a very kind of sketchy idea of what it is they're trying to create. One that gives them as many advantages as possible while leaving men with the bag in terms of the responsibility of covering this shit. There we go.
Feminism and patriarchy.
Now the stakes are even higher. As Black women have come into understanding of healing and emotional intelligence, now we don't only want a marriage material Black man, you want an emotionally intelligent Black man. Somebody who's doing their work too, spiritually, emotionally.
Mr. Johnson, if I may.
When I say
let me get this.
that they're Black.
Damn it. Crap.
And Black women.
I lost the shit. God damn it. Go ahead, man.
If I may. So you asking for these, I guess, expectations. Okay. That make it across every book. But we as men, we observe. We don't go by words. We see what you do. And it's totally opposite. A man is a man at the end of the day. He only could do what is in the best of his capability. To demand all this, it's better if you just partner up with a woman. And it makes me wonder, and I'm gonna ask the first question, and we can continue the tape. That what are the consequences, ladies, of you raising your children by yourself when they don't have no male actual father presence? Because it seems to me when I hear these women talk, it's like, did your father talk like this to you? Because this is surely evidence of a person that has been groomed and raised by only one parent, and which is a mother. When I hear these conversations, and we're not going to talk about other race people, we're going to talk about us. This is what I'm getting. You may continue to tape.
All right. I think I lost the damn thing again, but hold on.
Men are some of the most high achieving demographics of women on people on earth. Black women are pursuing next level education. Every Black woman I know is got multiple degrees, graduate degrees, constantly pursuing goals, education, income, taking courses, trying to improve themselves. And at the end of the day, where are Black men at? Where are they doing the work to make themselves marriage material?
Not our job.
Are even higher. As Black women have come into understanding of healing and emotional intelligence, now we don't only want a marriage material Black man, you want an emotionally intelligent Black man. Somebody who's doing their work too, spiritually, emotionally.
Dr. Johnson, you mind pausing?
Okay, hold on. Go ahead.
This is assuming that women are better at the softer skills than men are, particularly in the Black community. This is but if that's true, then how is it that when we put them together in a relationship, they have the highest DV rate?
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So this is assuming that they're just better communicators. They right. What do we tell kids? Use your words. We assume that they're better at using their words. We assume that they're more this whole thing that's popped up over the past few years about emotional intelligence, which is just psychobabble, right? And by the way, I'm not saying that that's not a real thing. I think emotional intelligence is a real thing. I'm saying it's an excuse to say, you know what? Okay, goddamn. Okay, the numbers ain't in our favors necessarily. These men got a point in some of the things they're saying. What can we say or use that actually can't be measured? Emotional intelligence. By the way, like I said, I think that's a real thing. But the excuse now it's being used as this weapon to hit men over the head with, because it can't be measured. There is no way to really judge how emotionally intelligent a person is. And even let's say they don't get what you're saying, they can't tap into what you're feeling, but they can with another woman. What does that mean then? You see what I'm saying? But I really did this thing that, you know, really grinds my gears. This grind my gears with this assumption that, you know, once again, like I keep on going to, women are morally superior to men, but then the assumption that women are just better communicators than men are, right? Just because you emote different than a person doesn't mean that you're actually better at reading people, at understanding, and it doesn't mean that your academic accomplishments then make you better at this thing. We know too many college-educated women that can't string two words together to tell you how they feel, or to eat, better yet, because they're actually pretty good at that, to read other people. They're completely inept in that regard, right? And I'll pause right there.
Oh, anybody else want to add?
I would like to say something real quick. The sad part of this is, and a lot of men don't want to say it because of how society is, she don't even know her job. It is a woman's job to get herself worthy of becoming somebody's wife. It's not a man's job to go out and become quote unquote worthy to get a wife. He's supposed to be working on whatever his God-given mission is. That's going to make him worthy, period. So a lot of this is because everything's backwards. We got Black women trying to tell men they have to be good enough to take care of them. Where I come from, you don't deal in nothing where the company has to prove to the employee that they have the ability to take care of the employee. So therefore, as an employee, I'm going to take the job. No, you want to get in and want what their company got going on. Point blank, period. So unless women want to say that they are willing to flat out take care of me until the day that they die, why are you trying to tell me what your standard to pay for you? That don't even make sense to me. It makes no sense at all. Especially in her scenario where she's saying, well, you know, my husband paying 95% of the bills.
See,
so you want somebody to pay for you, but you're going to tell me what I got to do to pay for you? That just don't compute.
I want to share something, but in the past, this has not worked in terms of y'all being able to hear it. So I'll try it again. It's not letting me download this video clip I want to play. So I'm going to apologize beforehand, but I'm going to see if this will play at all in a way you guys can hear. Okay, well, at least it's visible, but tell me if you can hear any of this.
Pretty emotionally intelligent.
Did you guys hear any of that?
Yes.
Yes, I heard it.
All right, let's see if we can just check this out.
Before you continue, let's see the check here. As he's playing, see if you press 1, you can hear it. Press 2, you can hear it. Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Okay, we got some ones already. All right, beautiful. All right, let's see if this will play. Here we go.
Dude, I've noticed that there's only room for my emotions when they're convenient for the woman that's asking me to be emotionally intelligent. That any emotional labor I do that's not for her convenience, or not that something she specifically asked for, that either goes unnoticed, or when I'm saying something that's not favorable, the shit gets used against me and it becomes about how she feels about what I said and not about the shit that I said.
Ladies, he making something too much sense. Somebody cry. Somebody cry. Somebody cry.
So what? All I'm saying, because saying that, all right, now we got our own money, we want y'all to be emotionally intelligent. That's a great fucking argument until it becomes a real life situation and you start to deal with an emotionally intelligent and you realize it ain't been enough of them in your life and you don't know what to do with that type of man.
You're not lying. You're not lying.
Any thoughts?
FD Signifier said this too. Even he had to concede that point. Even he said, y'all say y'all want that, ladies, but when y'all meet him, right? Look, Mr. Z has been in this exact situation. Y'all see how I talk. So you know I can run them down. And I've been in this exact situation, Dr. T, this exact situation when they don't know how to handle it. Oh crap, he done made sense. Right? And don't let the joke that the sister said, don't let that miss y'all. She was joking, but she kind of wasn't joking. She was joking, but that's a serious scenario that many men find themselves in, where when you actually make sense, I call it just locking off all the doors, right? You leave them nowhere else to go. You're not being loud. You're not being particularly combative. You just disagree, and you know how to string the words together in a way that they have nothing to string from. And then the tears come, and the tears is the reset button, the pause button, or the I don't got nothing for this, so let me shut you up button. It don't work on me though. And I'll pause right there.
Here's the thing. So what happens if you have a much larger percentage of quote unquote red pill men that are actually emotionally intelligent? See, part of what she's doing by suggesting that there are not enough emotionally intelligent men is she's discounting and disavowing men who have something to say that she won't like, that may be just as emotionally intelligent as she's suggesting they should be. She doesn't want to deal with the reality of that. See, what I found is what many women consider to be emotionally intelligent are men who agree with them. I remember I had an ex, we used to have arguments, and she would say, well, you're not really listening to me. And I said, no, I heard everything you said, and I listened to everything you said. I just don't agree with you. But for her, the measure of me listening or me being emotionally in tune with her was about agreeing with her. And I think that's the problem when it comes to people like Rebecca Lynn Pope. When she talks about emotional intelligence, she's not talking about a man that actually has something to say and might disagree with her. She's talking about men that'll fall in line and follow. And that's the
difference. You may follow her.
That's what I mean. Yes, follow her.
Yeah, exactly. And I do agree with that. And this is why I have a personal policy. I don't really listen to women because I know they saying a bunch of stuff to get them through a moment. You know, and a lot of people are like, well, you shouldn't say something like that. No. If that's what I have to do because I'm an intelligent man, I cannot afford to live in a world that ain't real. I don't have that type of luxury. So I don't really listen to them in general. I understand they say they want an emotionally intelligent man. They're going to tell that to a man who they believe is dumb enough to buy into what they say so they can keep doing nonsense. But if you actually are an intelligent man, especially if you're an emotionally intelligent man, the only reason she's going to bring that into your attention is because she's trying to distract you from something she's trying to do she ain't got no business doing. When you can pick up on the stuff that they put down, they have a huge problem with it. So tell you they want an emotionally intelligent man, but when they stand in front of an emotionally intelligent man who could pick up on all the nonsense they're trying to put down, they have a huge problem with it. So they're just lying again. You know, the issue that I think a lot of black men have to accept is just black women gonna lie to you and they gonna lie on you. And that was just a clip of basically what both of those things at the same time. They don't want no emotionally intelligent man because she can't manipulate an emotionally intelligent man. And a lot of sisters depend on their ability to manipulate a man to get what they want.
Yeah.
Well, we see that with the case with the former football player, right? Look, all these men suffered because of a lie. All of them, from the husband, which hopefully will soon be an ex-husband, from the husband to the football player, because he got to live with that. I mean, he did what he needed to do, but he got to live with that on his conscience, right? I don't fault him at all. To the obviously dead brother, to the other brother who ended up getting shot. Like all of that is off of a lie. It's off of manipulation. It's off of emotionally manipulating men, right? All of it. And that is a prime example of what we're dealing with. It does lead to proxy violence. That is as far as some of that manipulating men and using this type of emotionalism against men, right? That's as far as it can go, right? And it may possibly even further. I mean, we've even had wars over this, right? You know, so it is that serious, right? And I think we're developing the language to kind of combat this, but the brother said some real stuff here. And the only thing I would change about what he was saying is you weren't necessarily raised, you know, to actually deal with a man like that. No, some of these women have been. They, like Rod said, they're just using this type of talk of emotionally intelligent men as kind of a weapon for brothers that they think aren't up on game, right?
So it's a tactic.
Yeah, it is. I do think so. I think that's what we're engaging in right now. It is a gender war. It is a gender war, and what we're dealing with is a group of people that think that you're really that dumb. They really do see men, and the masses of men, maybe not all, but the masses of men, as big dumb jocks that they have to go through to acquire certain resources. So the best thing they can do is be sly, be slick, lie to you, rub your ego, right? Stroke your ego, stroke something else, and get what they need from you until they dip off. I really do think that the masses of women see men as a necessary evil that they have to come in contact with. I don't know if I would say all. I don't know if I would say the majority, but I definitely think it's a large minority, right? A loud one too, of them that just, I gotta deal with it because this 40 grand ain't enough. This 50 grand ain't enough. And the energy that it would take for me to make it 80, I don't want to put that in. But I work with this guy and I gotta do fine, right? I think that for many of them that's what it is, and that's why brothers and men in general come into contact with a particular type of personality or attitude that's very combative, standoffish, because it's them having to bite the bullet in their mind, right? And yeah. And I think that's what you saw on that panel when that brother was saying that, and the sisters had nowhere to go because they know it's right. They know what he's saying is the truth. That's what they didn't have anything. That like rarely happens, by the way. But he did a good job there.
But that's why the joke was quick somebody cry. What a lot of men don't get, that is just another tactic to distract. And see, someone like myself who is emotionally intelligent, who picks up on the BS, they don't want that. Because they don't like the fact that I know what they're doing. And I tell them, look, I know exactly what you're doing. This is what it is. And now they have nowhere to go. They don't like it. It is what it is. They don't like it. And the issue is you're just a black man. So the more equipped you are as a black man, the more they're going to have a problem with it anyway, because all this stuff leads to, I don't want to deal with no black man. We need to break it down for people. But at the end of the day, it's all roads leading down the road of, I don't want no black man. I'm going to give you a huge black tax. So it's not that I don't want no black man. It's that you black men can't afford me because the tax is so high. But as soon as you walk out the door and the white man come up with far less than what you got, he's fine. So you can't have it both ways.
Yeah. Robert Reed, come on up in here. Let me go ahead and play some more of this.
When I say that black men are in crisis, I'm not exaggerating. Ladies, our black men need therapy. They need deep healing work. They need healing work.
Which is interesting, by the way, because Robert Reeves just talked about this not too long ago, where he was saying that you're talking about a field, when you talk about therapy, when you talk about psychology and psychologists, therapists, you're talking about a field that in the next decade will be virtually all female. What's interesting when you talk about this, when you hear these kind of glib statements about men needing therapy, what are they actually saying? Is therapy really about self-growth, or is it about imposing a set of standards that defer to women's interests, needs, and feelings?
Re-education camp, Dr. T.
That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. You're talking about a field that has virtually no men in it as it is. So I find it interesting when I hear these kind of statements. And then when brothers start telling me, especially brothers who've been married and they go to marriage therapy, but for the most part, the majority of the therapists they run into are women. And for the last 3 generations of men who I've heard talk about these issues, more often than not, it becomes a 2 against 1 dynamic when it comes to the therapist and the wife.
Dr. T, I know you've watched South Park before. Cartman, respect my authority. No, seriously. I mean, like, I'm joking, but I'm not joking. Like, that's pretty much what you're describing right here. And you know, the crisis thing, like you said, Dr. Richard Reeves has spoke about this. Look, this is not a black man in crisis thing.
Robert.
I'm so yeah.
No, you checked me. I appreciate that. Go ahead.
Yeah, right. You know, I did it in a subtle way. But you know, yeah. So Dr. Richard Reeves spoke to this, and it's this is the thing, dear ladies, you got what you wanted. You wanted female empowerment. You wanted the system to be skewed in your favor. You got that. So men are in crisis because this is pretty much a zero-sum game, and women are winning to a certain extent in the education system and in different ways. So you're getting what you want, but you don't want it. Wait,
Well,
what?
it's to me, it's a product of policy over the last few generations, and that has created a bifurcation in the Black community that has advanced Black women on a surface level.
Exactly.
Now, when you deal
Yep.
with the actual material on the ground issues, there isn't a whole lot of difference. But I think what many Black women have developed with this sense of entitlement that has come with being prioritized, at least on a superficial level in terms of policy, is the attitude and perspective that they need better, they can do better, and they are better than Black men. Even though in terms of, some of the material data, it's not a whole lot different, but they have a different sensibility. Right. I talked about this yesterday when I said at the end of the day, they've had a safety net that Black men don't enjoy. And with that comes a sense of buy-in to a system that has not been very welcoming to Black men at all. So we don't walk around with a sense that there's a safety net. And now what we're experiencing in society is a withdrawal of that safety net. And now you're starting to see Black women coming to really live a reality that's very much on the ground how Black men have lived for decades. And it's terrifying. But most Black men don't have a safety net.
May I interject? It's just something I came to realize. I think I was telling my wife this. I don't know. And I came to realization that women have an innate greed to them that I really come to notice. And one of the things I noticed, it came to me by when you read the Bible, you read Genesis, not trying to get biblical, but if you read it, God created Adam, then God created Eve. He gave them everything, but the first person who was to bite the fruit was Eve. And she bit the fruit on the contents of, hey, this fruit can give you more, not only more than Adam, but God himself. And that has literally kind of been echoed throughout the years. You can get everything you want and more, And unfortunately, like even when she was saying earlier, she said it's a culture issue. But it's funny how when you look at everybody talks about the importance of womanhood and women and things like that, women are the ones who teach culture. So if it's an issue with the culture, you have to look at yourself first. But then that would mean accountability. That would mean change. That would mean, hey, that maybe he's not always the problem. And so,
Sounds sacrilegious to me, player.
You know what? If I can interrupt,
I'm joking, brother.
I'm sorry.
Are you good?
Oh, well, if I can make a point that's kind of piggybacking off you, what you just said kind of, I don't know if anybody's familiar with the sci-fi Amazon Prime show, The Expanse, but there's there's a character in there who represents a group of people called the Belters, and they live, aptly enough, in the asteroid belt. And this character, he makes a point in his speech to kind of, enthuse his people about revolution. When talking about the forces that oppress him, the people on Earth, he says one of the reasons why they attack us is because men are always going to hate the thing that shames them. And when I look at the way ADOS women, in comparison with white men and white America historically have treated Black men, there's a connection there. There's a symbiosis there. And when they see us, they see the shame and they hate it.
Okay. All right. Let me get this going again and try and get through as much of it as we can and get your comments. So here we go.
C-Sal says women are waiting until they're too old. Coco Blade says that part, we're preparing for men who aren't prepared themselves. And then by the time you have a man on a higher socioeconomic level, we're wondering why they marry other women, because those are the women they're around on that level. And then those women are the women who are used to being provided for and protected by their fathers and men. So these are women who are in touch with their feminine, who men prefer. And so Black women are sitting here stuck because we're frustrated and hurt. And we've been walked over and taken advantage of and hurt and broken, and we're having to do all the work to heal that, but then you're frustrated and overwhelmed raising kids by your Black man that's not there for you, that you tried to make a life with. Single mothers, we know it's an epidemic. Single mothers don't make themselves single all by themselves. Black men are not in the home raising their kids. Are there some of you? Yes. And we applaud you.
Okay, we got to deal with that. Single mothers do not make themselves single mothers.
Yeah, that's some bullshit.
Listen to all that shame. Listen to all that shame.
I'm confused because I'm born in the 90s, so I remember growing up in the 2000s. It was a whole single girl era, like single mother era, like where there were young girls growing up that would get pregnant on purpose, like in high school, college. I would see it, so I'm confused. And you could look at the guy and be like, he's not ready. You're not ready. This is not smart. Well, I'm gonna get help. My mom's gonna help me. You know, I got options. He doesn't have to be there. So I'm confused. So like, what exactly is she particularly trying to?
This is a very old narrative. Again, that goes back to the 1980s, right? It's very much framed around Black men who, you know, just come into the lives of Black women, ruin their lives, leave them with the bag, and they have to struggle while Black men enjoy some Shangri-La somewhere, you know, void of responsibility. This is a very old narrative, but I want to get some more of you to weigh in on this whole statement. Single mothers don't make themselves single. Anybody else?
What she led with, see, the whole thing is her talking points, just like most people when they talk about the Black community, is women are supposed to be in charge. If you listen to what she's saying, now I don't know how she can say seriously that single mothers don't make themselves single mothers, because the only way that didn't happen in America is you literally had to be married to somebody and somehow your husband died. Outside of that, you have to choose to be a single mother. There's no other way to be one unless you make that as a choice. Now, the thing is, she go with this fatherless home thing. Whose job is it to be with the man that they're supposed to be led by? That's a woman's job. It is not a man's job to keep a woman in the home. It is a man's job to make sure his woman will have room in the home. If she ain't where the man at, she's the one messing up because he's the leader. And notice every time Rebecca Lynn Pope has said so far, because I haven't heard it yet and I've listened for it, she keeps talking about protection and provision from people that she's not led by. She's saying women need to be protected and provided by men they're not led by. If I am not your leader, why am I protecting and providing for you? And a lot of men just don't catch that. It's not my job to protect and provide for people I don't lead. That's called charity. And ain't nobody gonna tell me what to do with my charity.
Real quick, Robert, I don't like people blowing up my comment section. So if you have something to say, why don't you come up and say it? Go ahead. Anybody else?
Again, I just hear shame, internal shame projected outwards.
Okay. All right.
I'll say this in regards to the protection piece, and I didn't say this earlier, in regards to what she makes as her money and what he makes is his. You see, with that mindset, you know, it's easy that there's always a way out. I remember when Kendra G was having a conversation with Chaos, and she talking about exit plan, right? That, you know, so it seems to me you only get into these relationships or situationships or even so-called marriage so that you could plan your exit. If that isn't your mindset, then it's better off you just go deal with some other group of men that you say you're gonna stay longer, so that way you could pocket, which they're very smart and very fair. Very few other groups of men are in the business giving charity to other groups of women. You get me? Much as they put a ring on, they're not gonna be so eager to sit there and pay you off and then keep paying you for whatever lengthy. This is like instant retirement, Dr. Johnson. And in the perfect world, that sounds nice, but we're real people. There is no actual set retirement unless you work and put in the time to qualify for that. That's why marriage today in the West is, as I look at it, it makes sense why it's in the tanker. because now you're just getting in it because you don't see the value in it because you don't see yourself doing and playing your role. Marriage is not only contractual, but it's duty. Okay. That's why we look at when they did data on us. The reason why we stay together because we know the importance of building something and its duty. That we're doing this for the greater good for not ourselves but our future children, so they have something. Right. That was gone for the last 50 years. Or actually, now we can say now 6 years.
But Chaos, are you sure about that? Maybe that's why men were doing that. Are you sure that the women weren't staying because they had no other choice? What my argument now is, what women are exhibiting, not just black women, they're just the loudest and they're ahead of everybody else, is essentially, I don't need you to eat, so I'm gonna give you my rear end to kiss. Right? I don't need you to eat. If I'm in a situation where I need you to eat, then maybe I act different, right? And so that when you can now look at things differently. If you don't need transportation, you can now say, you know what? If I do have to buy a car, I can buy a really nice one. I only want to drive in a luxury car now, right? Because I don't need a car, right? So now it's a luxury. So now I only want a very luxurious vehicle. So that's what I'm saying. I think that's that's what we're dealing with now in 2023 is women that just view relationships fundamentally different than our grandparents and our great grandparents, because at least on a day-to-day they don't see the men they need. They don't see the plumber on a day-to-day. They don't see the mechanic on a day-to-day. They don't see the whoever's working at the plant, right? The power plant. They don't see those men on a day-to-day. And so because they don't see how much they need those men, and even their individual, right? Like we're no longer like in the jungle, right? We're living in concrete jungles, but we're no longer in the jungle. So they don't necessarily need this physical being for literal protection on a day-to-day basis. Because many of us live in these major cities, they have particular crime rates, but for the most part, like women aren't being, SA'd on like once they get out the door. And they just fundamentally think about relationships differently than our grandparents and our great grandparents. And I think that's okay, but then you got to deal with the consequences. And what I'm hearing Rebecca Lynn Pope do is deal with the consequences of women having a different worldview about men, but then not come to terms with much of the reason why they're sounding the way they do is because they have a different worldview about men and manhood and masculinity and being in a relationship with the man. And I'll pause right there.
Okay. Let me get back into it. Here we go.
But the statistics say in overwhelming numbers that black fathers are the number one fathers that are absent. So guess what, black women? You fall into this can't win.
That's not what the statistics say. The black men may not be marrying women, but they're actually present to family, most particularly kids. So it's an interesting kind of twist. But then again, she doesn't have to do research.
You got to be mom, dad, provider, protector. You got to do it all yourself. Well, what energy does that put you in? Masculine. Then you're exhausted. Now you're frustrated. Then they want to say you're angry. Vicious cycle.
Not really. We're talking about non-cooperation and competition, competitiveness, not necessarily a matter about someone just being angry. But again, these are deflections so that you don't actually have to deal with issues that black men have not publicly voiced until this last decade or so, but have had concerns about for the longest. I mean, I remember sitting in the barbershop in the 80s. I heard men say the very same things, but there was no public stage where black men said such things, but they did receive nothing but critique for the last 40 plus years in all kinds of mediums, from mainstream and otherwise, from black women. But when black men finally do respond and have something to say, first turn that she makes, right, just to suggest that they're incapable, they're not present, and now all of a sudden expecting the world from women who are left. I mean, she's created a narrative, and she's not doing this alone. This is a popular narrative. It's an old one, but she's resurrecting it in many ways to push this argument that the non-compliance, the argumentativeness, this all comes about because she's victimized and left up to her own devices. When Black men are offering another narrative that hasn't really been told publicly until very recently, and far too many women like this don't even want to listen to it, let alone entertain it.
This is the same argument that Dr. Umar Johnson made, by the way.
Exactly.
This is the same, and it is so false.
And there's no accountability.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, if you would build Wakanda, Dr. T, just build Wakanda, and then we wouldn't have this problem. If we just build Utopia, we wouldn't have this problem. They would be perfectly okay, and we wouldn't have these type of issues, because it's not that they see this particular behavior as actually being free and liberating.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something we have to grapple with, and that Dr. Umar has to grapple with. The behavior that you see is them giving you their rear indicus because they actually like it here.
But we also have to keep in mind that both Dr. Umar and Rebecca Lynn Pope are basically their whole business is dependent. Their whole business model is dependent on the same demographic that they're advocating for, and they're advocating that group shouldn't have any accountability in any significant way at all. Because if you tell them they have to be accountable, they don't donate as much. They don't purchase your services to the same degree. So, a lot of this is cap, but the problem is there are people I've heard making these same kind of points that are not necessarily in the position they're in. But these people are popularizing these misandrous points to advance their own agendas, at the detriment of Black men. Anyway.
Listen, what I'm saying is, if you are a Black single woman and you want to be married, I'm tired of seeing you struggle. I'm tired of seeing you hitting your head against the wall. Nothing wrong with giving a good Black man a chance. But it's time.
Good Black man is giving you a chance, by the way.
Married. I've said it 100 times. I said it inside class. If I was to ever do another matchmaking business, I would do a matchmaking business for non-Black men who want to marry.
This is the commercial.
There are millions.
This is what it's about. This whole video was about.
Love Black women who will marry Black women and treat you like a queen.
Where is she getting that from? What data source are we
There
using?
is not a single one, Dr. T. You know I'm all over this. There's none.
It's
none.
snake oil. It's snake oil reporting.
Millions of non-Black men waiting to marry Black women. And here's the thing. If there were one, I'm not upset. I'm not suggesting that's, I'm not attacking that. I'm just simply asking the question, where the hell did you get that from?
But it flies in the face of everything that we. Go ahead, Raj. I'll go after you. Go ahead, Raj. I'll go after you. Go ahead.
I mean, the lady has a business. It's better to tell that lie than to tell the truth. Because the truth is, Black women are America's hoes. That's what they are. Non-Black men use Black women to have sex with, figure out what they need to know and understand when it comes to women. Then they go back and marry their own. So they are America's hoes, and by choice only. I'm not saying they have to be America's hoes. It's Black women that decided to be America's hoes, because it's not like men can force them into it. Not in this country. You can argue that somewhere else, but not in America. You got to choose to be a hoe.
Well, I will say this though, especially after the end of slavery, right? The idea propagated in society, most particularly to make sure that Black people didn't advance in terms of policy. The stereotypes put out did suggest that Black women were basically nothing more than bed wenches. But those stereotypes also suggested that Black men were nothing more but walking phalluses or criminals, right? Or rapists. The thing about it, though, is that when you deal with the nature of a human being, right? Women who are in the larger majority, right? Whatever gets them in the room is one thing, but when they're in the presence of a man, especially in large numbers, you start to actually see a change and a shift. Now, there are more women than men. Men who are able to take care of women are always going to be in smaller supply. It is what it is. But at the end of the day, it's made for an environment where Black men are sought after around the world. That is, there wouldn't be a Passport Bros movement if that wasn't the case.
I lived overseas for 15 years. I can attest to this.
And Dr. Umar, I will say this now. When I grew up,
Dr.
as
T,
a
you said
kid,
Dr. Umar.
I remember.
Getting doctors.
I'm sorry. Yeah, my bad. You know what? Because I've been getting on my folks to make sure they make the distinction between Umar and the real Dr. Johnson, Dr. T. Hasan Johnson. So I'm sorry. That's probably one of the greatest insults you've ever had to bear. So I truly do apologize. I truly do apologize. You've probably never been insulted worse than that right there. So I do apologize. Okay. But I am gonna say I do remember when white women were America's hoes. I do remember that. You know, when I grew up. Yeah, I remember white women they always in the pornos. They always, black women didn't want to, handle oral sex and things like that. And, you want that, you go to a white woman. I remember when it was kind of viewed as white women were America's hoes, but that has dramatically over time. So my thing is black women volunteered for that. Nobody forced them into it. They fight for that position at the end of the day. I mean, the top music artists right now, about the 4 or 5 top music artists as far as black women are concerned, have all been quote unquote sex workers. They fight for that spot. So it is what it is. So that's why I'm saying men of older cultures, in order for them to learn more about women or want to have certain experiences, they do go to black women. That's why if you go to the gas station that closes at midnight and see who that Arab guy leaving out with. See who he leaving out with. If you don't believe me, what I'm saying? They do what they do, but then they still go back and marry their own. So that's Arab men, Indian men, whatever man you want to say, they still basically marry their own.
But the critical question is, who do they take home to family and who do they marry? Because this is what she's talking about. She's actually talking about marriage. Right? If she said you can find boyfriends, you can find sex partners, I'd be like, she's right. But as soon as she said there are millions of non-black men waiting to marry you, now, mind you, we can also add in that earlier on when she, referenced sub-Saharan Africa, as Mr. Z said, she's not just talking about black American men; she's talking about black men, period. Right? So she's saying that black men, period, are not on that list per se. But not, and she said it, non-black men, right? So this is the list she's talking about. Where are these millions of men that want?
That's give or take 3 billion plus other men are just not even millions, 3+ billion, because between all the black men in Africa, let's say all through the West Indies, the Caribbean, or whatever, South America, you look at a little bit over 500 million men, right? So you mean to tell me something like 3.5 billion men on the planet are just waiting to knock down black women's door, and on this planet, post Western colonialization that solidified the color hierarchy. Okay, yeah, that's it. Okay, yeah,
right.
I'll put it like this. Like I said, I lived overseas for 15 years. Various countries, the majority of which was in Japan. I can count on a single hand the number of couples I've seen where it was a black woman of any ethnic background, the non-black man. And by a single hand, I mean I've seen 3.
Yeah.
In 15 years. I said that there weren't more.
Yeah.
Me personally, firsthand, I've only seen 3.
Yeah.
And it's a commercial. And I'm happy she finally got here. Raj, I'm gonna move out the way in 20 seconds. I'm happy we finally got here. This was just a big commercial. Dear Miss Rebecca Lynn Pope, you didn't have to do all this. You could just say, "Hey, I'm thinking about opening a matchmaking business for black women and non-black men." It would have took you like 20 seconds to knock that out and get it out of there. You didn't have to throw black men under the bus, speak about how horrible we are, how we're not stepping up in this way or that way, which, by the way, we don't owe you that. And then, now say, if I did, you're doing the same thing the presidents do, by the way. I'm not thinking about running, but if we know what this is. I'll pause right there. Y'all go ahead.
I'm just going to say, brother, if you a professional nigga hater, why would you miss this opportunity? That's what she.
Good point.
And y'all got to accept it. Yeah, she does get paid for this, so she's a professional nigga hater at this point because she see black men as niggas. That's why she can't see what she believes a good black man is. She can't see him. That's why she say Well, I had to argue with my husband who told me they exist. She don't even believe our own old man at the end of the day. When you ain't gonna even believe your husband, the rest of us ain't gonna get through to us. So this is a professional nigga hater. And you know what? She's trying to be the best one out there. I understand.
Yeah.
She runs. If you have that as a business, she's trying to be the top nigga hater out there.
And it's profound.
That's what I can tell.
But here's the thing: it's profoundly disrespectful to her husband. Profoundly. I mean, if I'm gonna get up here and say, "Look, y'all should not be with black women anymore. You should be with anything but black women," knowing that my black wife is in the next room, that is profound. That, I mean, that there's a level that's worse than actually not having a black woman and talking this shit. You got one in the next room. She got a black man in the next room, and she's talking about, despite how happy she supposedly is.
Well,
I mean, it's ridiculous.
You see, she in the car. She doing her Derek Jackson thing. She in the car, so But anyway, man.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
It's unless she has the understanding with her spouse that, hey, baby, I'm just doing this to make this money. Don't take it personal.
Wow,
that's what makes it worse.
Yeah.
I wanted to say that when Dr. T was speaking, it makes it. I genuinely think she is happy with him. I think she's happy with him, and what makes it worse is that she might be happy with him and see this as a great business opportunity and said, well, screw all the other black men. I'll throw them under the bus. I'm not with them. Right. And I'm trying to get this bit. And if you read some of the comments and watch some of the videos from swirlers and divestors, of course, you're going to make a killing. Now, how long are you going to make a killing? Because those white men are not going to, come in abundance, pun intended. How long are you going to make a killing? Maybe not that long, but you're going to make a killing from all of these black women that will still, even by Crystalline Karazin's admission, not lose the weight for the white man. So you got a couple of years where you could delude them, yeah.
Let me tell you what's cold about this economic moment is the more people that lose employment, lose housing, lose income on a variety of levels, that's going to hit every other sector, right? So if you're in a sector where you get a lot of money on YouTube and this kind of thing, it may take a second to hit, but it will hit. If people are struggling to get groceries, if they're struggling to find apartments to live in, don't even talk about buying houses. If we're in an era where people are struggling and your business model depends on donations, soft shit like buying online classes, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having those things, but if that's your business model, those things will be affected by this current economic moment. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, this seems to be a business model shift on her behalf to bring in these more and more divestors and frustrated women. But the reality is this shit is going to hit a line, and more women would do well to do what Rebecca did a couple years ago in terms of finding a Mr. Pope and adjusting your sense of reality. But she's actually selling the opposite despite benefiting from that arrangement. And that's going to lead a lot of black women to even more loneliness and frustration, because now you have a fantasy that there's some white man or other man somewhere else that's going to come pick you up. And when that doesn't happen, especially to the majority of black women,
the vast majority, because here's the thing, you got a vast majority of other groups of women that those men already want, that need help, that need men. So you're going to tell me there's millions of men that are going to supersede all of these other women that need help, that want help, want companionship, to go find black women? That's what you're telling me is going to happen? And you've offered what data to your, your group, the audience you're seeking? What did you give them to verify that these millions of men even exist? We look at marriage rates, they don't fucking exist. I was just 1% of white men marry black women.
You see that?
1%. I think it's also close to 1% of Latino men, 0.25% of Asian men, right? And about, I think 4% of black women are married to a white man. I think it's like infinitesimal for Latino men, like in their particular demographic. So and speaking to something as you're saying about this model, this business model, I said this to BGS. I think they sound more fanatical until the adjustment. Before they adjust, it's like the calm before the storm. It's the other way around, right? Inverted. I think they sound even more fanatical until they actually are forced to readjust. It reminds me of, and I'll pause after this. It reminds me of, if anybody saw the picture of an African sister. I don't know, and I think she said on the side, she might have even said that she had kids, and she's like, "I'm looking for a white man." On the sign, she says very blatantly, "Looking for a white man, such and such," and she gave a short description of her life. And so I'm saying, during the starvation, they're going to try to shoot all the way up. And it's when they realize that that's not going to happen is when you get the readjustment. So, of course, they're going to try to go for what they deem as the highest bidder, right? And then, white men don't make it any better on themselves. I love it. Is that they think that these dudes are like rich, dumb, or stable, or upper middle class lames. And, I'll just put this fire vagina on him and he'll be, spending all his check on me. And of course they're going to shoot all the way up, and, that's okay.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think this is the loudest. If you've ever played musical chairs, it's the loudest at the last chair. And just before the music is about to go out, people are screaming, they're yelling, they're laughing, they're doing all kinds of shit. But this is where we are, because the reality of it is the music is slowing the fuck down. And a lot of this kind of situation, these are people that are pimping, frustrated, lonely, and very desperate people who have been following myths for years that aren't working out. And you're selling them another one. And you're selling them another one because if you saw this large population of black women married to non-black men, you would have said so. All you pointed out is one African woman that you had a lunch with that had married a white man. That's all she really said. This is reality.
One thing I want to say, because I want you to continue to finish this tape, Dr. Johnson, is this. It's no longer being factual at this point. Is they just want to say, "I said so," and I'm one that says I'm right. This is why it is such a dilemma trying and prove anything at this point, because the narrative sells better than anything else. There's nothing here that she labeled or put anything out here to back up what she's saying or claim, because I have the bigger voice, I have an audience, and I could just sell snake oil, and I'm just here to say I am right, regardless if any of the information is even factual or not. So this is the thing that, why black men at this point keep playing it safe and trying to keep it honest with this data. They don't respect it. They don't. Hell, they in their mind, it's better to sell that you ain't shit regardless, and if you're not shit, I'm gonna raise the bar constantly to the point say, if you were being honest with a lot of black men, and a lot of black men came to realization, you don't want the black men to decide, this small crowd, to make decisions, say, all right, then I just don't waste time to deal with you at all, since that's where your mind says at, and leave you to your device. But we know that's not gonna happen, because who else they're gonna look for the fallback? Who else they're gonna look for this so-called, orbiter? They will slowly start leaving the building much faster, and eventually they're gonna leave the building anyway, because with social media, it's evident now.
Well, look, the last thing I'll say about this before I play the rest of this is, this whole, a couple of years ago, I would have argued that a lot of this could have been resolved with just basic levels of cooperation and kindness. Black men weren't asking for a whole lot. When you got to Kevin, you started to hear a concerted statement that added on to that, lose some weight, to compete for the men. And here's the thing, not lose weight just generically, lose weight to compete for the men you say you want, because you never bothered to ask what those men wanted. But if you want high value, then lose weight for the men you want, because that's what they want. That was added on. But the initial list, I never found to be very, very complex. It was, it was cooperation. It was kindness. That was all that was being asked for. Now you got brothers leaving the country and looking for those very qualities. And instead of actually saying, you know what, maybe we actually should listen to the men who are finally talking so we can see what it is they want. Because this is the thing, if I actually want your buy-in, if I want to appeal to you as an audience or whatever, I need to figure out what it is you value, if that's what I say I want. But if I'm not even going to listen to that audience, and I'm just going to continue to put out what the fuck I feel like, and then be mad that the results are not working the way I want them to, you're just running around in circles. And to me, this is the next level of lunacy, that you're gonna go find this mystical, magical millions of men that want to come out and marry you. I'm like, okay, good luck with that. Good luck with it. But here we go. Let's see.
It's time for you to change your type.
Uh-oh.
Your type needs to be good man. Your type needs to be husband material. Your type needs to be whoever is going to love me, provide and protect me so I can lean into my feminine. Aunt Weezy 86, do you think men of other races fetishize?
As long as he's not Black American or African.
Yeah.
And
as long as it's not Black, period.
But not Black, period. And one of her commenters did raise the issue of Black women being fetishized. And she's about to speak to that because that's what we were basically talking about earlier. But let's see what she says about it. Oh shit! This thing is frustrating as hell.
Okay.
Life. If it is not 100% soft, fine. But softer. I want more Black. Take the limits off. I want to see Black women feminine.
I'm sorry, I lost it.
And we
see
men of other races
There it is.
fetishize. I can't ever say that word. Fetishize us. Listen, just like anybody else, there's gonna be people who want things for the wrong reason, just like there's Black men who just want to screw you. They don't want to marry you, but they'll screw you. It is time for you to grow up. It's time for you to open up. Take the limits off. I want to see Black women married to Black men, white men, Asian men, Latin men, European men. I don't care. I want to see Black women thriving in a family unit, sharing roles and responsibilities so that Black women can thrive. That's what I want to see. I want more Black women living a softer life. If it is not 100% soft,
did she just say sharing roles?
Softer, easier, less stress, less responsibility, partnerships where you have a life partner who is doing
Don't sound like a wife to me.
so you are not all by yourself.
What was that?
I was saying that does not sound like a wife to me. Partner? I didn't hear wife.
Yeah.
No, they're redefining wife as somebody a man's services. That's what they're doing. They're redefining wife. It's somebody a man's services so that her life is easy. I don't know where that definition of husband comes from because at the end of the day, that doesn't even suggest an exchange. It just suggests that this is something that men do for women. Somebody was about to say something.
But didn't she contradict herself? Because at some point she said, find a man with whom you can share roles. But
I didn't hear that. I missed that.
She did say it. I heard it.
She did. She said.
Does she hear herself?
She said. She does.
The
thing is, she definitely
just off the charts.
Oh my God.
It's bizarre. Totally bizarre.
What? I'm gonna get ready to take off because it is Friday night and I'm single. Okay. And I'm gonna just leave it right there. So I'm just gonna simply say, I mean, it is what it is. Anybody who takes her course and it doesn't work out, or if any guys know some women that need a little help, just send them to Chicago. I got plenty of room for them on Lower Wacker Drive. Don't worry about it. Your accommodation is all free. You ain't got to worry about it. It's all free. Okay. We got, Upper Wacker ain't gonna really do you no good, but we got Lower Wacker. I'll find you some room. Okay. I'll find you some room. And that's all I'm promising. Just room. Okay. But no, it's all the way free. Real talk, real fraud. So appreciate you, Dr. Johnson. Have a great rest of your night.
Wait, Rod, before you leave, I got a question for y'all. In jest. Hey, y'all think we could find a bunch of white dudes and just make money off of them on the back end? Pause. Yeah, I mean, like, hey, bro. I mean, like, hey, if Rebecca Lynn Pope is gonna do that, we might as well be like, hey, we got some business opportunities for y'all. Yeah, I'm just, something, as long as it's legal.
Come to Lower Wacker Drive. if they willing to come to Lower Wacker Drive, it'll be plenty of rich white men there. Because those, I'm talking downtown Chicago. I'm talking about some of the richest men in the city gonna be right there. Okay, so come on down to Lower Wacker, and I get you hooked up. Okay.
Here's the thing for me, though. Does
here's the
she
thing.
understand that the
Hold
same
on.
thing that we as black men see are the same things that other men see?
Yeah. Yeah, especially in this era of media accessibility. Yeah, everybody's seeing it. But here's the
I've
thing.
had so many discussions with Japanese men in Budapest, Iraqi men, asking me questions. Are black women really like it? Hell, they didn't. Some of them don't even know that black women's natural hair is curly.
Wow.
God damn, that's shameful.
Literally.
That's shameful.
Wow.
Do they not?
That is shameful.
They really don't see this.
Well, here's the thing. I'm going to close this out because I think you brothers hit it right. The end of it, she just revealed what the commercial was about, and I don't think we need to hear anything else. I think we've covered enough of it. So I want to get closing thoughts, and I want you guys to kind of be brief with it. I'm gonna start with Steven, Jared, Chaos, and then Mr. Z. So Steven, you up first. Any closing thoughts?
Statistically wise, black women are the worst stewards of their own children. Anytime you have white women being the better parents of black sons, that's damning.
Okay. All right. Appreciate that. Jared, you're up next.
Yeah, I'll just say this. I pretty much black women won. They got what they wanted. I just hate the fact that we're a lot like the lies of like they have this race loyalty when it's not really. It's more than who you sleep with, in my opinion, when it comes to race loyalty. In the next 10, 15 years, the sons that they raise are going to be the very men that they hate. And is when everything hits the fan, they're going to realize that the sons that they so cherish are not going to be the men that they need. And they're going to really see what it means to not have protection from black men. And, they're going to get the real white men that they want. And it might be in ways that they don't want, unfortunately. And that's going to be the downfall of the community. And it's not going to be because black men didn't care or black men don't love the community. It's because we were pushed out.
Right. All right, man. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it. Much good.
All right. Chaos, give us your closing thoughts.
Let me ask you a question, Dr. Johnson. For a man, is it better, since we hear all this, is it better that woman respect or fear a man?
Say that again.
Is it better for a woman, instead we talk about this love thing, is it better to have respect and fear or love from your perspective?
I'm more of an advocate for respect than anything else. But go ahead.
Okay. Since you answered that question, we could clearly, from listening to Ms. Pope, that, it seemed to me you might love your husband, but you don't really respect him. A lot of women have a distinct lack of respect for black men. And if you don't respect them, you damn sure not gonna fear them. And we could tell evident because if you were the one of following, you would not be rushing up and trying to impose actual violence. I don't see him do this with other groups of men, but black men, personally. Now, if anybody has any videos otherwise, please follow my channel on YouTube and, hit me up on the links to follow me on social media to throw some evidence to verify this. But I think at this point, black men should really seek more respect than love, because love comes and goes. That's why marriage don't last long, because they don't respect. They talk about this love thing, but love comes and goes, in my opinion. And if the woman they dealing with does not really respect, she damn sure don't fear you. Because anytime she's going based on your love, we all know how that turns out. Marriage don't even last long in the West anyway, now we think about it. Besides us, it's like the minimum right now on the average is 8 years. With us, it's like, I would say 2. I don't know where people get this 5. some people that if they get through 2 years, that's just a start.
Okay. All right, man. Appreciate you.
You know, Chaos Rain channel. I put some things in the back channel. You could probably post in the chat if you want to. That's up to you. All right.
Well, they got the name on the banner. Go check out the channel. Thanks a lot, man. All right. Real quick, everything is everything. I don't particularly like all caps in the chat. Please, if you have something to say, just communicate it normally. All right, Mr. Z, close us out.
Thank you for having me up again, Dr. T. Okay. Once again, this is about our image. What we see with Miss Rebecca Lynn Pope here is she's considering opening up a matchmaking business again for Black women with non-Black men. And she has to throw Black men under the bus before she can get started. Right? And so this is about our image. Once again, Miss Rebecca Lynn Pope is actually doing her best rendition of the reemergence of the KKK, right? After what was the movie that what's his face that Wilson played in the White House? I forgot. God damn, everybody knows the movie I'm about to say. But yeah, she's doing just her best rendition. So it's another one of those, hey, scary boogeyman black man, scary black man. Okay, now let me get some money off of y'all on the back end. You know, and so that's what we see with Rebecca Lynn Pope. I want us to be able to defend our image from this type of slander. This talk of the mythical, magical white man is juxtaposed to Black men. I want us to be very clear. She's not speaking about these white dudes in a vacuum. It is in comparison to Black men, right? This and the overall air that she was giving was, you know, instead of holding out for this for this mythical Black man, just be with any good man that's probably not going to be a Black man, because you know Black men are deficient and defective. You know, and fully closing out, this is not new. We're going to hear more of this. And Rebecca Lynn Pope, I think she's making a play at Black women's money, like you said earlier, because of their sadness, because of their loneliness, because of their desperation, because of the crunch of the economic environment right now, right? And people are feeling it. I mean, like stagflation is real, inflation is real, austerity is real, right? And you know the elites will give you each other to beat up on. Right? Don't look at us. We're not the ones hoarding all the money. Meanwhile, I'm hoarding all the money. Look at it's him. It's the man that you're supposed to be with. That's supposed to be this hyper protector and provider, while I hoard all the wealth and I cut your jobs and I turn this society into a gig economy. Right? The women are going along with that. It's up to us as men. And I said this, Dr. T, and I want to say this on your channel. I want us to be prepared. Everybody that's listening, to be the stable person in your circle. Because a lot of our family members are going to sound fanatical. They're going to go to weird ass places, right? Mentally, I'm saying, emotionally, because this, if what we're predicting financially happens, people are going to be feeling the pain. And the thing is, even though they're feeling the pain, remember, everyone in here is in their 20s, their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, their 60s. We were raised with a particular worldview when it comes to materialism and consumerism and a sense of, air quotes, freedom, right? And purchasing power. When you no longer can do that, but you still have this kind of ghost of an idea in the back of your mind speaking to that, I think people, namely women, namely Black women, go to very weird places. And I think the Rebecca Lynn Popes of the world are going to be vampires and eat off of that.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll pause right there. And thank you once again very much, Dr. T, for having me up. And like I said to the brothers, y'all be prepared to, and even for your homeboys and your friends, you know, your homies, you're going to have to be the stable one. People that's frequenting the Black manosphere, you're going to have to be the stable one, because a lot of our friends and family are going to just, they're going to check out psychologically. I think mentally they're just going to be out of there. Right. And I'll pause right there. Thank you, T.
Hey, man, thanks for coming up, bro. All right. And I would say it's already happening. And you know, in terms of family, friends, I'm starting to see the crunch. In terms of the larger society, from you know levels of homelessness to the you know even you know crime, just crime in places and parts of the city that previously didn't have much. I think we're already seeing the crunch. So you know, if you're on your square, you got your family in order, keep it that way. Do your best to stay on 2 feet. Don't let this stuff get to you. But you can expect there's likely to be a lot more of this. And I think what we're seeing with Umar, what we're seeing with Rebecca Lynn Pope is definitely grifting off of the pain of people and trying to exploit it in many ways at the detriment of Black men. But either way, I appreciate you guys hanging with me on this. Y'all have a good night. And, you know, give us your thoughts in the comments. Let us know what's going on. Let us know what you're seeing in your cities, in your environments. Let us know what you think about this this discussion, and of course, on what Rebecca Lynn Pope is doing here, advocating for here. Let us know. All right. Other than that, y'all have a good night. I will holler at y'all later. Peace.
Yeah.